YouTube land. We appreciate you tuning in for our work session here, our fall retreat, actually. So it is September 23rd, 2025. We got a pretty full agenda today, so we're going to be here all day. And we have Ms. Matthews is probably going to be running a little late, so her penalty is she has to sit next to me. So it's just the way it is. All right, Ms. Beth, would you lead us in a prayer this morning?
Sure. Father, we come before you today and we thank you for this opportunity to bless our county, to bless our teachers and our students. And that's what we want to be. We want to be a blessing. So give us wisdom and understanding on how we should vote on every issue. Help us to see the issues through your eyes. And Father, we just dedicate this meeting to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
You do the best prayer. All right, so we got a pretty full agenda. We're going to start off with Mr. Westmoreland. And I will say that we have, I think in the last year, we've gone through a lot of the different programs in the school district. But the one thing we haven't covered is the SPED program. And it really takes up, well, I don't want to say it takes up, but really a big part of our budget goes to special education programs. And so we thought it would be good to have Mr. Westmoreland come in and enlighten us on the program so that it's not such a black box. And so, Mr. Westmoreland.
All right, well, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to stand before y'all this morning, and I hope I'm a whole lot more entertaining than Donald Blessing. So you gotta remember too that I'm a teacher at heart, so jump in anytime if you have any questions, at any place through this. I'm going to give you a lot of information. We're going to talk about personnel. We're going to talk about numbers as far as students, and we're going to talk about where all the money goes. You're going to see a list of where give or take every nickel is spent in special education for the past 3 years and this year. So again, jump in at any time. And let's see if this works. Okay, first off, I want to just go through these slides real quick with our personnel. So you know who each person is. Of course, I'm there. We have Miss Christina Dawson. She's my administrative assistant. She's back in the office. Does a great job. And then as you look down through there, you can see each title, each person's name, the schools that they pretty much represent. And if you have any questions about any of those people, let me know. Notice the number in bold. That number in bold is the number of cases that those people are responsible for. And when I say cases, that means individual special ed files. They're not only responsible for, like Miss Greer is not only responsible for FBAs, BIPs, and things along those lines, but she has 47 students in our district she's currently managing as far as FBAs and BIPs and behavior plans. Not to mention a multitude of other people that work with her on those. Then you have Dr. Autumn Baber. She's our lead coordinating elementary 4th and 5th grade teacher. She's holding all the files for 4th and 5th grade students at those 4 individual schools. And right now she's responsible for 49 individual files. To make that number make sense, that's an IEP meeting. That's one student per meeting. And it takes anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to complete a process in an IEP meeting. And that's all the pre-prep, all the data research, the actual meeting, creating all the documents, finalizing all the documents. So, 50 files are quite a few.
Don't know, can you explain what an IEP is?
An IEP is an individualized education plan. Students who qualify with a disability that has an eligibility, that meet an eligibility criteria have an IEP. And in that IEP, we have to develop, we're required by federal and state law to develop a plan for their educational purposes. Now, the IEP is solely designed for them to access the curriculum. It's solely designed. So we don't want to give them a better opportunity than a general peer. We want to make the field even. We want them to have the even opportunities, okay? You'll hear us say least restrictive environment. The least restrictive environment is the gen ed classroom, okay? And if you hear people say tier one is gen ed classroom, Okay, all right. Okay. Speech and language pathologist, these are SLPs that work at our different schools throughout the district. And notice the caseloads. Now, Brenda Hodge, Miss Brenda Hodge, notice she has 13. This is speech and language files. The 171, she's our dyslexia coordinator. Right now, she has 171 students in our district that have active dyslexia paperwork being processed right now. So she's got multiple hats there. Brittany Keel, notice Brittany Keel, 93 students. Those are 93 students that she is over their files, plus she's also serving them and providing some therapy to them as well. And you have to put that number, like I said earlier, in perspective, because that number equates to a lot of time developing those plans. Okay? Callie Williams is new, and she's at East Coffee. Yes, ma'am.
How often do you meet?
Well,
Just the one time for the AP meeting, or do they meet during the year?
we're required to meet annually, to update the plan annually, but a team member can call a meeting at any time. A parent can call a meeting, a teacher can call a meeting at any time to discuss, and we call that an addendum. There's no limit, you know. Of course, we don't want to have meetings for the sake of having meetings, but if a need needs to be called, we'll have them. On average, these numbers represent probably at least in a school year 2 meetings at a minimum. Some 3 to 4, sometimes 5 meetings in the school year. So if you think about that, basically you can double those numbers, plus several of those kids may have multiple 3, 4 meetings. We have transportation meetings. If we change transportation, anything that has to do with that educational plan, we have to meet. Okay. Now we have therapists, speech and language therapists. We have 2. Occupational therapists, we have those. And notice I have some that are contract. We have some contract services that come in and do those things. Then we have physical therapy, of course. And those are students that, of course, they have the caseload number, just like all the teachers, even though they're contract. Now, we're at the Central High School now. These are our teachers at the Central High School. The number in the first set of parentheses, the first group, that is their certification. These are special education certified teachers. And notice the caseload numbers for those 2 ladies at the top, 109 and 113. Now, Katie Lowe's is a little bit higher because she serves the Raider Academy as well. Mr. Larry Lalonde is our B-Mod teacher. Okay. Miss Hannah Harmon and Rachel Jones, they're our comprehensive teachers, our comprehensive setting, which we call it CDC. Some call it highly modified instruction. These are our educational assistants. That's just at Central High School. So you get a pretty good perspective of how many special ed faculty and staff are at the high school. So that's just at Central High School. Total enrollment. Now, these numbers are a little off. They change, seems like from day to day. Total enrollment at the high school is right at about 1,200 students. SPED enrollment's 159. It's 13%. And there's your breakdown of SPED versus Gen Ed. That's the Central High School. Anybody have any questions about that? Now, we do have CDC. We have 2 CDC classes at the high school as well. Change. There we go. Raider Academy.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On those special ed students at the high school, are they still allowed to stay there after their 4 years?
They can go up to their 22nd birthday.
Do
Yep.
we have those?
Yep. I think we have 4 right now that are carryovers. Yes.
Who pays that?
We do.
I mean, is it special ed from the federal government, or is
We
it
still get
local?
TISA funding. It's still part of the funding base. Yes. So we still receive our funding for that, but they can stay, students with special needs can stay up to their 22nd birthday if they're in that comprehensive setting. Yeah. So not all the 13% will stay, but the majority of the students who are in the comprehensive setting, they get work-based learning, they get, work skills, life skills, and things like that.
Charlie?
Yes, sir.
Didn't you tell me about a year ago that don't you have about 110 people in your department?
Right now, we're at 124, faculty and
Wow.
staff.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll have some more of that as we get on down in here. Okay. Did I answer your question, Ms. Frida?
Yes. Well, I'll ask something
Yeah.
later about the funding.
Yeah. This is the Raider Academy. We have our teachers and we have our educational assistants here at the Raider Academy. They have their license, of course, their license certification there in parentheses. This is their breakdown. 421, 14%, special education. Where the rubber's going to meet the road is here in a few minutes. We're going to see a slide that I compare us to about 12 other districts, and we can see where we're at.
Charlie, could you tell me what all qualifies them to be considered special ed?
There's a whole list of disability categories, you know, and I want to say there's like 20 or 30. I don't have them listed, but I can get you that list. You know, we have autism, which under OHI, we have ADHD, both types. We have LD in reading, LD in math, intellectually disabled. You know, there's a whole list. I can get you that entire list and a description of what each one are. Yeah. Do you have any questions specifically?
Well, do the English language learners, do they come under?
Fall under a different category.
Different.
Now, they can have, an English language learner can have ELL services and an IEP too.
Okay.
It just, you know, you can have multiple. And we'll get into that a little bit later here too. That's a great question. Virtual Academy, there's our special ed faculty at Virtual Academy. Oh, I'm sorry, COS. Coffee County Middle, these are just the teachers. And of course, there's your caseload numbers in bold.
What does the 460 stand for?
460 is mild, moderate, special ed certification. And then the 461 is the comprehensive. Yes. The 460 mild, moderate, that's what my license is.
That's the certifications.
Yes, certification. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the certification of the teacher?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And you can look and see, you know, we've got some comprehensive and mild, moderate. These are all special ed endorsements. Sioux Hall's a unicorn. That 105 endorsement is an old endorsement, but it's still an active endorsement.
What about on the occupational therapists? They have to be certified?
Yes, ma'am. They have a professional license.
How long does it take to get that?
I don't know, but I'm sure it's through a master's program.
Really?
Yeah. Now, you've got two different things. You've got occupational therapist, and then you have someone who actually writes reports. That's a master's level, and then someone who actually provides therapy. That is a bachelor's level.
Okay.
It's two different pay scales as well. Yeah. And then these are the assistants at the middle school. And then there's our middle school enrollment, 21.8%. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Ms. Beth, you pointed that out. I mean, you see a trend. Our high schools are our smallest population, ninth grade, Raider Academy, you see an uptick. Our middle school, even more.
Yep.
And then I'm
Yep.
sure he'll reveal the elementary here.
Yeah, we're going to go through each school. You'll see each school.
Mr. Westmoreland, I don't want to jump in the middle of it, but I'm going to jump in the middle of it. Do you mind describing to our board what a typical day looks like for an educational assistant?
Yes.
That is not in a CDC
Yep.
class?
Typical day for an educational assistant, of course, they're going to be providing inclusion services for students with special needs. And what inclusion services are is where the students in the gen ed classroom and they go in and provide support based on that IEP. So an educational assistant may go from period to period to period and serve kids in different grade levels, different subject areas, and we focus on reading and math. They may go in there with one kid, they may go in there with 6 kids. And what they're doing is they're monitoring, they're supporting, they're giving them extra time if they need extra time. They're doing a read aloud for them, just whatever their IEP dictates. Educational assistants will start the day providing services. They'll have their lunch break. They'll end the day providing services. Okay? That's in a nutshell. But they're active with students all day long.
So it allows our students a least restrictive
Yes, yes,
environment.
yes.
And there are a ton of acronyms
Yeah.
in the special ed department, and he's wheeled through them pretty quickly, but that's what LRE is. And we try to push for are students that have the least restricted. They're in a gen ed setting, may have support, and those educational assistants are the ones providing that.
And I want to say that my push and my philosophy and the special ed's model is temporary. The whole purpose of special education is to provide interventions and provide support so that as time goes on, the supports can be whittled away. Because we don't want students to be receiving the extent of everything they can possibly receive for their entire career. I do not agree with a student being in a program for 10 years and not having any progress. So if I've got a student in my class, today, by the end of the school year, I want to see progress. I don't like the word lifer, and some of these students, bless their hearts, are considered lifers because they're locked in special education their whole 12, 13, 14-year career in public schools, and I totally reject that. So when I'm talking to teachers and assistants, and that's my philosophy, you know, an IEP doesn't mean an A. Adequate progress. Not every student's going to make A's. Not every student is going to make B's. Not every student is going to make C's. But we want to provide them the opportunity to have success in life. And sometimes that means pushing them beyond what we think they can handle. So our whole mission is, our whole goal is to provide interventions early so we can pull interventions away later. Does that make sense? Does that resonate a little? Okay.
Basically, you're gonna give them the tools that they need to
Boom.
be successful.
There you go. There you go. Because what do we want? We want them to be happy and successful, right? Right. Hillsborough Elementary. There's teachers and assistants. Notice Samantha Thompson, 3-5, she's in pre-K. Now, notice this. Notice this number. She is a pre-K, integrated pre-K teacher, and she has 9 students, but she also has general, typical peers in her class as well. 9 is not how many kids she has all day. She has 20 seats, and we try to fill 10 of those seats with gen ed peers. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the pre-K.
Mhm.
What is the age that we start serving them?
3 years old.
3 years old?
Yes.
So if you know of a child in the community, we serve them.
Hey, now that's sped.
Yes,
just said
that's,
pre-K.
yes.
Pre-K
But
Well, I'm
we,
talking about pre-K sped.
yeah,
Oh,
pre-K
okay.
sped, we do,
Right.
yeah.
No, I'm not talking about, yes.
And in VPK, there's guidelines for 3-year-olds to join VPK as well. But there's a difference, VPK and IPK. VPK is our general volunteer pre-K.
Right.
IPK is our integrated pre-K, which includes SPED kids. Now, that doesn't mean that a student with an IEP can't join a VPK class. They can. But the IPK classes are for students with the most advanced needs developmentally.
How do you find those children?
We do
Because the parents don't know that this is available to them.
We do child find, we put flyers out, and we have, you know, even though, regardless of what the process is, they have to go through the application process. Yeah, well, yes, and then we have the TEIS, it says on here TEIS somewhere, but the TEIS is the Tennessee Early Intervention System, so a lot of our students will come through that process through TDOE. And do what? Birth to 3. Well, TEIS is from birth to 3, but once they turn 3, they can qualify for services through the school system. And what I do is I get a list of students, and typically we're Coffee County. We have 3 schools in our district. So a lot of times I get students, and I get this list of 7 students, and I send the addresses over to the transportation department. And they say, okay, these are zoned for us, and these are zoned for Tullahoma, these are zoned for Franklin County. And then I send those kids to those respective schools. And then we set up the process for the students who are zoned for us. And it's a process. And any parent in Coffee County can walk into their zone school and ask the questions about pre-K.
And it's very important that we serve them.
Absolutely. I will not deny service to any student in Coffee County. That's zoned for Coffee County. Now, if it's Tullahoma, if it's Franklin County, if it's Manchester City, we collaborate, but I make sure that that information gets sent to them as quickly as I can.
Ms. Jones, our VPK is funded through state funds.
Yeah.
And the 619 is what I call it, the federally funded, the SPED split between special ed students and general ed, typical peers, that is funded through federal dollars.
Yes, yes.
So there's two different funding sources.
And I'm going to
for
show that
those.
here in just a little bit, have to break all that down. Just a little bit. But pre-K is something that we are, pre-K, it's interesting. When I came into this position, I had no idea I was going to be doing so much with pre-K. But probably to date, probably 60% of my time is dedicated to the pre-K programming, the teachers, the transportation piece, just, the TEIS meetings, the transition meetings, the IEP meetings. We have certain guidelines we have to follow for every bit of that. And there's 3 grants right now that I've written that we're receiving funding through pre-K, and it's time, it takes a lot of time to do all that.
I don't think, that early intervention is going to be important to get them on the right track, so.
Absolutely. And we're seeing an uptick in, developmental behaviors and things to where students are really struggling at younger ages now than they used to. All right. And we were at Hillsborough. Here's our numbers at Hillsborough. And again, those numbers may be off 1 or 2 kids, just depending.
Charlie, what was numbers 10 years ago? Were we looking at numbers like that?
I'm gonna show you a 3-year trend here in just a
Okay.
moment. We're seeing an uptick of about, 7, 8, 9% each year. And I'm gonna,
Wow.
now you go back, I don't have the numbers all the way back to 10 years, but if I look at that trend, it kind of tells me that it should have been holding
Do
the
you
same.
think that might be also we get more funding and more kids are being certified? Not just here, but.
I think that's definitely a problem because I have discussions with all of the case managers throughout the district every year about over-identifying students.
Right.
Like I said earlier, an IEP doesn't equal A's. If a student's making adequate progress and a student is Ames Web benchmarked, and if they fall at a certain percentage and their classroom performance, so there's a couple of data variables, if they don't need special education services, why would we provide special education services? And all of our decisions are data-driven. If the data supports this student receiving an intervention and an IEP, 100%. But if the data is not supporting it, then it's hard to get me to sign off on it. Now, sometimes parents will come in and it seems like that they think that some think that the IEP will equal success. Oh, the 3rd grade retention. If my student has an IEP, we won't have to worry about them being retained or anything like that. Well, if your student's making adequate progress, you don't have anything to worry about anyway. So those are discussions, and sometimes, guys, these IEP meetings that should last 45 minutes last 2 hours. Because sometimes I have to go in as the mediator to help a team come to consensus. Okay. Great question. North Coffee. And there's the numbers at North Coffee. Hickerson Elementary. Now, Megan Sane, notice the 7. That is another one of those IPK integrated pre-K classes. She has 7 students with IEPs, but she also has 10 students that don't have IEPs that are not represented in that number. There's their percentages at Hickerson. Deerfield Elementary, large school. We have 2 comprehensive teachers there. That's the Miss Kennington, Miss Stevens. That's why their numbers are low. Comprehensive is those greatest need students. Those numbers fluctuate from year to year. Courtney Stevens' number has changed since I did that number. I want to say she's at 8 now, but those numbers typically hover around that 10. I'm a 1-to-5 ratio guy. I love the 1-to-5 ratio. So Miss Kennington's class has 10 students. She's got an assistant in there with her to support those kids. Now, those kids don't go to that class and sit there all day. They go out. They go to inclusion. We want them blended in with typical peers. That's the whole mode. That's the whole model. If there's any students who are attending Deerfield that actually are home, their home school is a different campus, our whole goal is to get them back to their home school. But the number one goal for these classes is to get these kids prepared for middle school, because it seems like those first 5 years go by that quick, and then here we are at middle school. Okay. And then here's Deerfield's percentages. Now, one of the reasons you see an uptick in percentages is because there are more special ed classes on a campus. That's going to change that percentage a little bit. Okay. East Coffee Elementary. Stacy Ballantyne is another comprehensive teacher. And then there's their percentages. I don't know if you noticed, but the campuses that had the comprehensive settings had the larger percentages of SPED, which that's going to stand to reason. New Union Elementary. Kirsten Shue is our behavior modification teacher. That's why you see the number 4 out there. I tell Kirsten Shue every day, if you work hard, you're going to have 0 kids, because all your kids will have all the interventions they need, and they're going to have all the support they need, and we're going to solve their problems behaviorally, and they're going to be out with the general population. There's their enrollment.
Does that include, isn't there a behavior mod class at New Union?
That was New Union, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, and they have a behavior mod class.
Yes, ma'am, that's Miss Kirsten Shue.
And that comes from all over the county.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So that's included in that 17%.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Charlie, is that adequate, one behavior mod for what we see in all of our schools?
Well, here's the thing, there's a process for behavior modification.
Right.
Guys, you got to remember, when you're talking about behavior modification, comprehensive setting, that's called a change of placement. And whenever we make a change of placement for a student, that means we're taking them from the least restrictive environment and putting them in a more restrictive environment. So there are guidelines that we have to follow legally to ensure that the data is supporting that change. Back in the day, a student was acting up, decisions could be made in a moment's notice to send them to alternative school or send them to BMOD or whatever. But over the years, that's been abused across the country, so guidelines have been changed. So now for a student to receive a change of placement, we have to have behavioral plans in place. We have to have interventions in place. We have to have things in place to try to show our due diligence that we've done everything we could do to keep that student from going to a change of placement. So that's why, sometimes we'll get students in our classes that have severe behaviors, and you're like, oh my goodness. We can have emergency situations to where we have to kind of jump through a few of the steps, but in most situations, a lot of situations, I can't tell you every detail, but a lot of situations, we've made a few interventions here and there, and it's changed, it's supported the behavior, and the students are doing better. I tell teachers all the time when they're having behavioral issues, said, this is just your year. We're going to support you. We're going to do everything we can do. But last year it was the 3rd grade teacher. Now this year it's your turn. You're going to have ups and downs behaviorally with students. But guys, we cannot just send the student out of the room because they're disruptive. We have to ensure that we're following guidelines. It's the same with transportation. And I treat them like they're my kids. And I want my kids to have all the interventions they can have before we change their placement. Because when you change a student's placement, sometimes you're setting them up for a lot of issues in their lives. Because BMOD's a big deal if you get sent to BMOD.
They don't like change, do they?
What's that?
They don't like change at all.
When you say they,
Yeah.
people in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the behavior mod, I know at one time it's at Deerfield, and I didn't think
Yes,
it was
ma'am.
fair that it stayed out there
Yeah.
so long. And now it's
Yeah.
at New Union.
Yes,
Will
ma'am.
you be moving it around? Or
No, ma'am.
How do you determine which school has the behavior mod class?
Logistically, when we were discussing the BMOD moving from Deerfield to New Union, I was really thinking about transportation. New Union is kind of the hub. That's kind of where every bus in our district will cross by. We have a lot of students who have half-day schedules who are going from school from like 8 in the morning till lunchtime. So those routes were being changed and adjusted. And when you have to go to Deerfield, it totally disrupts. It's like a domino effect of routes for the buses. North Coffee doesn't have, a special education setting at North Coffee. One of the reasons is not that they're not capable, but that's a long way for a bus to have to run out there at lunch and pick up one kid and transport them to Hickerson or out in that area. When I came into this position, I just felt like that every principal, every campus in our district needs to work with special needs students as much as possible. And
So the behavior mod's been at two schools,
it's been at
Deerfield and New Union, so
Yes,
it
ma'am.
won't be going to any other schools.
If there's, go ahead,
And
Mr. Short.
before that, it was at North Coffee.
It
I
was at
think,
North, yes. And then there was a comprehensive class
At East Coffee.
at East Coffee at one time.
And I know that it puts a lot of pressure and more onto that principal and the
Yeah.
school, so.
Yeah.
But that's just part of it.
That's part of it, and, you know, there's no real rhyme or reason, it's just we want to put I hate for students to be on buses for 2 hours. You know, I don't want students to be on buses for more than an hour, if at all possible, you know,
So you don't have a special ed bus or anything?
Yes, ma'am. We do have we have four, I think, don't we, Mr. Shores, right now? It's either 2 or 4.
Yeah, I think it's 4.
But yes, but we have routes, we have midday routes going all over the county. And,
Now I see one going by my house.
yeah,
so.
yeah. And that may only have one kid on it, you know? It's just that IEP team decided that this was the best thing for this student. So that student gets picked up and gets to school at 8 or so, and then they may get picked up right after lunch. It just depends on what their needs are.
And philosophically, I mean, you've got our most needy students. We don't want them, their bus rides need to be short, and because it's a challenge
Yeah.
for transporting them as well. That's a long time to,
And a lot of them are younger students, kindergarten,
How-
first grade, second grade.
Now, how do, that, when it comes time for standardized testing, are those kids included in
Yes,
that
ma'am.
school's profile?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So-
Now, they're under demographics. You have
Right,
ELL,
but
you
it's
have
still,
special needs.
it's still
yes.
set to that school?
Yes, yes, it sure is. Even if they're out of zone, say for instance, a student is
Well, I'm
zoned
sure
for
a lot of them are out
Hickerson.
of zone because you come from all over the county.
Yes, like if you have a student who is zoned for Hickerson and they're attending New Union,
Right.
BMOD, they will test at New Union.
Right,
Yes, ma'am.
it goes to that
Serving
school that
yeah.
they're attending.
Yes, yes, serving school, yes, ma'am. So,
That would be interesting to see what's, you know, how, because where the demographics are.
yeah. Well, when we talk about data, we talk about the things that typically he reviews as far as the students with special needs, the ELL students, and all those numbers are broken down. I'm not sure if that comes out per school or not. I think it does come out per school, yeah.
right.
So you can see that,
So-
you know, how it, yeah. But as far as your question about BMOD, my plan is for BMOD to stay where it is. If anything happens down the road, it will be adding another BMOD. So, you know, and where that'll go, you know, time will just have to tell.
And there's a lot of other things to look at. It's
Oh, yeah.
space that you have within the building.
Yep.
Like you said, location.
Access to the bathrooms that are closed.
Right.
There's a
So
lot of
things
a
to
lot of
look
things.
at.
All right. Now, total students with an IEP by district. I broke down Coffee, Franklin, Bedford, Warren, Tullahoma, Grundy, Lincoln, and White County. And if you look, you see their total number, and then you see their number of students with IEPs. Bedford County, of course, one high school in a big county. If we had one high school in Coffee County, our numbers would look like that as well. That just kind of gives you an insight of kind of what our numbers are looking like. But I think the next slide is a little more telling. If I can get to it. That's our percentages per county. It's pretty flat, really. 17%. White County's at 21%. Bedford's at 12%. I thought that was a little low considering their number of students. The average is 13% statewide. The national average is 19%. So what happens is if you're up over 22, 23, 24%, you have to really start watching the over-identification. Now, we're watching the over-identification now. You know, I think 17% is a little lofty. But, you know, our county is growing, and that number is going to change from year to year. But that just gives you a breakdown of what each district around us
What
percentages
about Manchester City?
are. Did I not put Manchester City on there? I thought I had Manchester
They
City.
Tullahoma.
Yeah,
Not on that one either.
Well, it could be because Manchester City does not have a high school.
well, that's true.
Oh,
There was a reason why I didn't put them on there, and that's probably along the thinking I was
oh, I thought
thinking.
that was district-wide, not just the high scope.
Yeah, that is district-wide. That's the entire Coffee County district is 17%.
And then we got Tullahoma, entire district, 15%.
Yes, ma'am.
But we don't have Manchester.
Yeah, I don't have Manchester City on there, but this includes K-12. Every one of these districts have K-12.
Right.
Manchester City's only
Doesn't have
K-8.
high school, yeah. But the percentage would still
It,
work out, the percentage of students that are attending.
I would be surprised if they weren't hovering in the, the 15, 16, 18%. Based on, I mean, that's a trend. We're all kind of hovering. I was surprised that White County was at 21%. They're not one of the larger districts.
You got 7 buses.
Yep, Spade. I couldn't remember how many I knew, there's more than 2.
Do what? Oh, you're saying if we had one high school in our district? Yeah, it's kind of different the way data is, the way percentages and things are figured, but, if we had one county, Coffee County had all the schools in our district, Bedford County with the number they have, that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good, I do.
And you look at the demographics of that county too.
Yes,
You would be,
yes.
I'm surprised that it's not more than
Yes,
less.
yeah, and they have a lot of students with the ELL population, yes, yes. And again, you can have ELL services and SPED services together.
Charlie, do you have a chart that shows elementary numbers and how progressively they go less as y'all work with them?
No, I do not, but over time, I can generate those things. The interesting thing about this number, this 912, you see this number, 912 IEPs? That is based on an entire year. Some of those students are no longer here. They came, enrolled, they were here a month or two and left. That's an unduplicated count. Every one of those numbers are not actual today numbers in the schools. So right now, we're around probably 700, 725, somewhere in that neighborhood, because we have kids come and go, just like districts all over the country, or state.
Mr. Westmoreland, with respect to Manchester City, they fit into us at starting at grade 9.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about us showing our district, you are incorporating some of Manchester City's
Yeah,
students.
yeah, yeah. Once they come here, we start counting them. Okay, so now, kind of where the rubber meets the road, this is the SPED report that I've actually turned in this year, and that's where some of the dollars go. 2.2 million for teachers. You can kind of see medical insurance, $803,000. This is from the general SPED fund, and that all totals to about a 5.1 million. And if I move on and you want me to go back, just let me know.
What part of that is funded by general schools?
All of this is general funding through SPED. None of this comes through general schools. Can you elaborate on that?
Well,
When
Amy?
I sent you that, I combined all of, so this, I'm not sure if if included federal and general in this total.
I don't think I have in this, but anyway,
When
yeah.
I sent you the report, I sent you total, well, I sent it by fund, so I don't know, I have to go back and
Yeah,
look and see what.
yeah. But those are the actual numbers that I've reported to TDOE.
What I'm thinking is in the future, if we're not getting federal funding, what are we gonna have to pick up?
Well, we've
We
already
gotta
picked-
think of that
yes,
in
ma'am.
terms of that.
Last year, we picked up 2 positions that we moved out of federal into general because of federal funding. And because here's the thing, when we do raises, and it's all great, and I'm 100% excited about it, but it changes all of these benefits, Social Security, state retirement, not to mention the salary, but all these numbers go up. And when all those numbers go up, what happened is in our federal line, April came to me and said, Charlie, we're going to have to move some positions from federal because the money's just not there, so that's what we end up having to do. With our cut this past year of $60,000 from federal, we may end up having to do that again this next year. or this year, this present year. It just depends on how expenditures look throughout the year. Next year, federal could go up. I don't know. It's like Miss Krista has said, it's just all these ebbs and flows with federal. We just don't know. It could go completely away. If federal goes away, we've got over $1 million we're going to have to absorb in general, or we start cutting positions. So our federal dollars is a little over $1 million. This is the next line. This is the next part of this year's expenditures. And I just wanted to be as transparent as I could be with all this, because I think it's what y'all want to know, where the dollars go. And this is all reported to TDOE every year. Miss April and I work together, and we put all these reports in.
What does communication mean?
That's for students who potentially we may need to purchase a communication device or support that, a Dynavox or something. We put a little money aside. Now, the thing about this is, as the year winds down, if we need to move money around, we can do those kind of things. We can do amendments. We can take some money from here to put here, depending on how the budget rolls out as the year rolls on. Okay. Transportation. This is the money that goes to our transportation department.
Does this include the assistance on the buses we just voted for?
You talking about we've got a few assistants who are getting overtime now. That's part of this budget. We've not filled the part-time positions yet. We've not filled any of those attendance positions yet. Okay. All right. And you notice it all adds up at the bottom. That's the problem with all these numbers. They all add up at the bottom. All right. So that's some totals there. 2026 total GP budget for special education is 6.4. And that includes $81,000 of the state pre-K money that we receive. And that's how each is initially broken down.
So roughly around 12%, 13% of our total budget.
Yeah. If you're at 55 million, 54 million, yeah. It's a good chunk of it.
The VPK number has not risen much more than a tick in probably a decade. That's the same monies that we received.
Started in this position, that state pre-K money didn't even exist. My second year, we got 20 for pre-K. Well, Dr. Cornelius and I had some information on how to code students, and the state wanted us to change the way that things were being coded. Well, then we started actually keeping a real solid running record of students in pre-K receiving special education. This year, the funding rolled in at $81,000. And I pray every day that we'll continue to receive this. And this money goes directly to personnel, directly to pre-K, SPED, when we start moving people around. Okay, actual expenditures by year. Here's some. 425, and you can see we meet maintenance of effort through our student. So that kind of gives you an idea of that uptick, Ms. Yinch.
Yeah, it does, but it kind of, if I'm just figuring in my head, you're having a little less money per student.
You are.
Beth, can you take that microphone, move it a little closer? Thank you.
Yeah. The main thing is, and this is what I really watch, is we want to be good stewards. As long as our students with disability enrollment is going up, this number just about has to go up. It just stands to reason. If this number drops down in the 700s, then we're going to have a problem with maintenance of effort, because then we're going to have to start looking at personnel. We can't continue to spend $6 million if this number here is going down. Because that's where we come in as a supervisory group to say, okay, This intervention teacher's only got one kid per class, so what can we, that just, it doesn't work with that. So that's the numbers we really watch, and I worked through the finance department with Miss April, and we really watch that close. Yeah. Okay. Federal grants, IDA Part B was a little over 1 million. We had 33,000, a little over 33,000 carryover this past year into this year, gave us that total. Federal grants right now, federal funding is 33 employees and benefits right now. The IDEA preschool, that is federal preschool money that reoccurs every year. We had a little, about 20,000 carryover. Right now, that's a total of 55. That's covering one employee and benefits. And then there's what money's left we use for supplies, materials, and things like that for pre-K. I wrote a grant, pre-K systemic change grant. This year's $50,000. We were awarded it, and we've got that money budgeted right now. That systemic change pre-K grant is paying for a brand new assistant, pre-K assistant at Hillsborough Elementary. That job's posted now. Now, the interesting thing about this grant is I was told this is a 3-year grant, but this grant may be going away after this year because of the federal government. So for me to get this approved to pay for an assistant, I had to turn in a plan for sustainability. So I plan on sustaining this position through the state pre-K money. You remember the $81,000 I showed you before? I plan on sustaining that position with that state pre-K money when this money goes away. So that's my sustainability plan. Pre-K Access for All grant, it was a 3-year grant. We're in the 3rd year. This year it's $10,000. So those are the 3, that's just the extra funding. Every time I get something sent to me from TDOE for grant opportunities, I jump on them and try to get them for us.
And is there a chance to get that again? Or is that,
Yes,
okay.
yes. There's always like a lull, like after you go through a 3-year grant cycle, sometimes you have to wait a year, then you can reapply the next
okay.
year. So I'm constantly, as they come in. And here's what TDOE does that I like. When we're eligible for it, they send me an email. Hey, Charlie, you're eligible for this. You might want to look at this.
Right.
And then I jump into it and see. Now, I've talked to Krista. Sometimes you got to be careful, though. You have to look at what the requirements for the grant are. If I have to do $1 million worth of work for $20,000, it's just not worth it. If I've got to be out of district 3 days a week, if I've got to be in Atlanta for meetings and I've got to do all this, I've got to jump through all these hoops, we have to really evaluate, is it really worth it? There are some grants and they'll say, well, you need to have a team of teachers and they need to be able to go once a month to a training in Nashville. Well, depending on what the amount of the grant is, it's just not worth it. Because it's a lot of paperwork, and I just don't like the idea of doing $500,000 worth of work for $20,000. This year, we have the 3-year UT retention and recruitment grant. You guys approved this at the last board meeting. We received $25,000 for Project Raise for recruitment and retention of school psychologists. It also covers social workers and counselors, but the caveat here is for you to receive that money, you have to have an open position. You have to have a posted open position. So right now, the only open position we have is school psychologist. So, any questions about that?
I will say I really appreciate, all the work you guys do for identifying the grant, you and Ms. Gardner and,
Yeah.
And everybody that's working for these grants, that's a lot of work to keep track of these things and apply and, to get that money coming in. So I really appreciate
Oh, you're welcome.
the work you do on that.
The easy part is for me to sit down and put together the narrative. Everybody around me that I have to collaborate with to make sure it all works. That's where the rubber meets the road. I can sit down and I can write a narrative all day long, but when it's all the other pieces you have to pull together to get these things approved. And let me tell you, I have never sent in a grant that was approved first reading. They always send it back. I have to do edits. I have to do this. I have to do that. And that's when I start collaborating with all the other people to help me. Yep. Right now, this also counts contracted services, Mr. Cordell. We have 124 total employees and benefits. The There's our GP, IDA Part B, IDA preschool, state pre-K, systemic change pre-K. That is just personnel. That's the reason those numbers look a little lower. Those other numbers you saw had supplies, materials, had a lot of other little things in it. This is just personnel. So we're almost at 6 million in just personnel, just people. Give you kind of an idea of where we're. So you're looking at, give or take, $1 million or $6 million in people, you're almost $1 million in all the other stuff that goes along with it. So that's where your $6 to $7 million budget's going to come from. And of course, IDEA is federal. An idea of SPED funding. There's our GP funding, our IDEA funding, preschool, state pre-K, systemic change pre-K. So you can see your GP SPED funding is the bulk of your budget. Okay. This is where this funding comes from. And I know you guys have heard TISA until you're blue in the face, but I tried to really water it down. It's the way we receive funding in the state of Tennessee is all based on TISA, and it's all based on how these students are coded. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. Your base fund, you have base funding. Every public school student has base funding. You have weighted funding. The weighted funding is for that individual need. You have direct funding. It's for key priorities such as CTE, and then you have outcomes funding. You guys have heard of the TISA outcome money that we have. That's what that is. This is how it's calculated. Your base, $7,200. Depending on your districts, each student gets a certain percentage above that base depending on how your school is classified. Now you see these ULN, Unique Learning Codes, 1 through 10. This student, Unique Learning 1, gets the base plus 15% if they fall into that category. If a student down here at 10, and guys, this is homebound students. If we have a student who's on homebound, they get unit 10, it's 150% over the base. So that student's bringing in almost $11,000.
So we have, you talked earlier about 20-some different classifications.
Yeah.
So how do you, and I imagine this is something that you and April have to do to reconcile to get fit into these ULNs.
What happens is a student's code is based on the services they're receiving. So when an IEP meeting takes place, it depends on the special ed unique service the student's receiving. If the student's receiving services in a gen ed setting, it doesn't affect this. But if a student's receiving services in a special ed setting, then their codes change. Typically, your resource kids, your kids who have maybe 2 intervention classes a day, are your option 3s and 4s. Your comprehensive kids, they're going to fall, some of those kids, if they're receiving speech, OT, PT, and are spending the majority of their day in a comprehensive setting, they're going to be 8, 9s, 7, 8s, 9s. It all depends on what that IEP meeting and where that service has been provided.
Charlie, what exactly do we provide to homebound students?
We provide any instruction that they require based on the IEP team decision. It's required we spend a minimum of 3 hours per week serving that student in the home. Now, we don't just always just go in the home. Like sometimes we'll have the student come to the school in the afternoon, after business hours, if you will. It could be academics, it could be behavioral, it could be developmental. It just depends on what the team agrees on. We have some medically fragile students who have had surgeries and have to be at home. We provide those services.
Okay, so that could be a temporary thing.
It's temporary. Homebound is temporary, yes ma'am.
Okay.
Yes ma'am. But if they're receiving homebound services, they're going to be classified as an option 10. Okay. So we do get increased funding. We're not going out and trying to get that. We want the students here, but that's just how the funding is.
Okay. Do you get it for the entire year?
No, ma'am, just while they're
Just while they're in the homebound program?
Because every time a homebound student gets a review every 30 days. So at the end of that 30 days, if the team decides they're coming back to school, the option changes. It's a process we go through. The codes change. It updates. Any IEP that's finalized, it updates at midnight that night. So if
you
I
have to
finalize it,
coordinate with Dr. Cornelius.
Very much so.
to-
Yeah.
He's the one that turns in all this data.
Yes. Well, Dr. Cornelius and I, every 20 school days, do an ADM report, average daily membership. And that's where all this, we make sure that his numbers and my numbers are where they need to be. Yeah.
And those TISA updates are provided monthly for 10 months.
Yep.
And then, this is all based off, like, so, right now, we're working towards next year's CISA
Yeah.
funding. So these are based, what we get this year is based on last year's numbers.
So how does our TISA allocation reconcile against actual costs of providing these services? Is TISA adequate to, or do we have to
We need
basically?
to take whatever the Department of Education is willing to give us. We're above water right now. And as long as
Okay.
our funding, and we can meet maintenance of effort, we can stay above water.
Okay,
We're not getting rich by any means, though.
so our TISA allocation does cover our actual costs for providing, especially on the,
I'm gonna say so far.
okay,
Yeah, and, TISA is one of those things we don't really know how it's gonna go through. They may change this. They may change these percentages, and when they start adjusting these percentages, then we have to really pay close attention to that maintenance of effort. Yeah. We have, guys, and it's just the elephant in the room is personnel. When you're spending 95% of your budget on personnel, and our goal is not to remove personnel, our goal is to serve students,
Ms. Freedy, you asked a question a while ago. Manchester City has roughly 17%.
Okay.
So it mirrors our number
Yeah.
in those three schools.
And April, jump in anytime if you need to clarify anything else, because you're the expert. I'm
You're
just,
doing great.
I follow her lead when it comes to financial pieces, I can do the reports, I can put the numbers in, but, it's a process, and we all work together to do it.
And you think about our system and all the complexity, his is like a whole different world within the world. I mean, there are a ton of moving parts. And I'm proud of the job Mr. Westmoreland does. The one thing I appreciate philosophically about him that I'm behind wholeheartedly is there's a continuum. We're going to start,
Yeah.
and we're moving children down the line. It's not a condemnation. We're working with kids, helping them grow academically, socially, and emotionally.
Yep.
And he's a pretty good juggler. He gets after it. I appreciate his hard work.
My whole goal is to serve the families and students of this county. That's all I'm here for. And that's what I think we all should be in that same mindset. Average daily membership. You mentioned this a while ago. This is how this is counted. Dr. Cornelius runs this every 20 instructional days. I run this same schedule. I print off a report from TN Pulse, which is our platform for special needs students. He takes that report, I deliver it to him, and then he pulls his report, and then he compares. If there's a problem, if it's off, if it's skewed, we get together and we figure it out. Sometimes it's skewed just simply because an IEP meeting took place and the student wasn't coded right. Maybe their IEP wasn't finalized at the proper time or whatever. And then that's where I step in as far as compliance is concerned. Okay? And I don't know, but if you see the trend, it's collaborative. We're all just in it. We're constantly communicating back and forth. And then there's that unique learning need. And this talks about the levels. Depending on their needs, they may generate up to 4 codes: special education secondary, English learner, and or characteristics of dyslexia. We could have students with multiple levels of multiple codes, in other words. Typically, though, if a student has characteristics of dyslexia, if that student carries a 504 or an IEP, typically that will take care of the dyslexia. You can have both, though. You can have an IEP and dyslexia, which we call that an ILPD, is what that's called. You can receive services for both. But typically, the IEP would cover that. Okay? Then there's the calculation, base funding, and the asterisks, of course. Dr. Blessing, correct me if I'm wrong, that means multiplication equals the unique learning. So I want to throw that math reference in there for Dr. Blessing.
math is hard.
Yeah. So that's how each student's funding is calculated. Okay, so that's that in a nutshell. I've got a few other little things I want to cover because that's just a small piece of everything that goes on in the district with special education.
He could spend 3 days, I
Yeah.
promise,
Hey, this
and
is
eat
a
up
master's
3
level
full
class right
days.
here.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
I wanted you to see personnel. I wanted you to see kind of the funding, kind of where the money is and where it goes. All that's public information, transparent. You know, of course, with special education, we got a lot of things we have to keep confidential, but that's all public record.
I can see where if 95% of it goes to teachers and personnel and we do a raise, I can see where that blows your budget really.
Oh,
quickly.
it's just,
Not that we can
don't
quit
get me
doing
wrong, I love
raises.
it. I love raise, I mean, I think that people desire, I think we need to invest
Yeah.
our money in personnel, people. But it's a domino effect. Every change here, every change there affects 2 or 3 different categories.
Yeah.
And we make it work. We figure out a way to make it work.
And there are these huge puzzles within each school because you have a certain number of age, you have a certain number of children you're trying to serve. Those are split within grade level. That's a puzzle within itself that he does a good job of orchestrating with our school staffs to figure out
You're welcome.
how to best serve our children.
Glad you got your bucket open.
Okay, guys, this I'm passing out is our grade card
And it's just.
for special education. It's called an APR, annual percentage
So,
rating. And this is always a little behind. It's a little behind. I think I got one for you and I got one for
Oh, well,
you to
thanks.
look at. Guys, I didn't want to use all that color ink. Somebody's got to pay for it. Okay, so every year we're graded. And at the top, I want you to notice at the top in the blue, it says total weighted score, total max score, your score, and then the determination needs assistance. Each one of those indicators, the case managers in this district are held accountable for compliance. So each one of those indicators that we did not meet the target on, I'm having extensive trainings for those people, and I do it every year. We get these every year. Some of the indicators are really hard to meet. It's just the way, the dynamic of the way the data's collected and the way we do things. But ultimately, you know, you can see, and this is only with students with disabilities now. You see graduation rate, dropout rate, you see all those things. But if you see over there to the far right where it says complete state assigned trainings, myself and whoever I designate goes to these state conferences, and we have to actually set in required sessions to get trainings on this. Then we bring that information back, and I roll that out to the actual teachers that are responsible for that. It is every Monday we send out compliance emails. We're checking compliance on every special ed student in this district. And anyone who has an IEP that's not in compliance, they receive an email and essentially are told, get it done. And sometimes they've already started the process. Sometimes students transfer in here from other districts that are out of compliance already, so we're having to kind of clean that up as well. So that is one of those report cards, and I spend a lot of time developing trainings around, and I have to report every bit of this to TDOE, each individual session. I have to turn in sign-in sheets, everything.
So
Now-
tell us what kind of things would take them out of compliance?
IEP's not being like the annual IEP, if it
Okay.
runs over. For instance, we're supposed to do a prior written notice after each meeting, and we have to have that done within 10 days of that meeting if it happens after that meeting. And there's a whole lot of APR data that's pulled from TN Pulse that reflects in this. It's the State Department's way of holding each district accountable for serving students with special needs. And if a district ever gets in hot water over identification, that's where this is initially going to come from. You'll start seeing it here. Now, the needs assistance, that is like, if you're teachers can be scored from a level 1 to a level 5. The needs assistance are about a level 3. Needs assistance just simply means that we have areas of improvement. Last year we were needs assistant. The year before last we were met expectations. But if you notice some of those indicators, I mean, we're really close. We're really close. But I just wanted you guys to kind of see some of the method behind the madness when it comes to how we have to hold each other accountable to make sure everybody is following through with every piece of information that they're handling. That's why it's so important to understand that these case managers who hold these files, they're not only teaching classes and serving kids, but they're having to make sure these are correct as well. And it's a lot when you have, 50, 60, 70, 80 files. That's a lot of work on the teacher. And I will say there are several special ed teachers in the district that don't even eat lunch.
That's what I was fixing to say. A lot of those are your assistants that does a lot of that paperwork that I've talked to, and a lot of the sped, these ladies that you're talking about, that's a lot of the work that they do is
Yes.
paperwork.
Educational assistants go into classrooms.
Very important.
And yes, 100%. It can't happen without
Yeah,
them.
that's,
And they go into the classroom and they collect data on the students that they see.
Mm-hmm.
That data goes to that case manager, and then that case manager takes that data to help support the development of that IEP.
Yep.
And if it's not, there can't be a weak link in that chain.
Mhm.
And I've told educational assistants that you're not going to be collecting data just to be collecting data. It's not going to just go into a folder and throw it in a desk somewhere. If your data's not being reviewed that you're collecting at a meeting, I need to know.
Right.
Because I'm going to ask why. Because if it's important enough for them to collect it, it's important enough for us to review it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to commend you on this presentation. This is the most comprehensive.
And I feel like I've left so much stuff
Presentation I've
out.
seen in
I
special ed.
appreciate that. I
We could
appreciate
spend all
that. I
day
really
on it,
do.
yeah.
On this indicator child find, I guess, what does that mean? That is in non-compliance, is that?
Let's see, that is on which
It's
indicator?
on-
Oh, indicator 11?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, child find
It's gonna be hard
is,
to,
that is, I'm trying to
meet.
remember, that's 100%. So what that is when a TEIS student, which is a Tennessee Early Intervention Pre-K student, comes to us, we have to go through a process, and we have to have everything completed, and they have to have the IEP written by their 3rd birthday. If we miss
Right.
that by a day, it dings here.
so it's
And-
not saying that you didn't find the child that needed
Right.
help. It's
Right.
just
Right.
the child is there, it's just one little thing. is-
We missed it by one day. And here's some things that caused that. Couldn't get the parent.
Right.
Maybe it was, they turned 3 on a Friday, we had fall break, and then there was that big break, and then we came back and we finished everything after fall break or whatever. Now, that's not an excuse, because I've already sent out information to everybody at the beginning of this year that we're going to go ahead in those situations. We're going to go ahead and complete the IEP. We're going to have the IEP in place, even if it's before Christmas break or fall break. We can have that done prior to their 3rd birthday. We just have to have services provided on their 3rd birthday. So they say, well, what if a student's 3rd birthday is on a Saturday? The IEP is finalized on a Friday. Services begin on Monday. You see what I'm saying? So it was a learning moment for me, and it was a training moment for them. And, so that was something I had to learn when I first came into this is how to solve that, because it didn't make sense to me to do an IEP on a Friday when they weren't going to start until a Monday. So we fixed that. So I hope we see better on that.
I just hope the general public can see what public schools do. It starts at
Yeah.
birth with these children.
Yep.
And I don't know what America would do if we did not have this.
Yeah.
I mean, just think of all these children that would get thrown to the
Yep.
wayside.
Yep. Yep.
And
We had a
it's just
student-
amazing what the schools do that nobody really understands.
Yesterday, I had a district reach out to me. They have a student who's moving here from another district, and they were concerned about, because they're turning 3 like next week, and they're worried, schools are worried about these indicators. And I was like, she said, Charlie, you're probably going to get dinged on it because of, I said, send them, let them show up, get them registered, we're going to serve them, Guys, I'm concerned about these numbers, but my priority is serving kids and doing what's best for kids. If I miss this indicator by 1% or 2 every so often, we're going to work really hard not to do that, but sometimes it's just going to happen.
But this is good.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
It's like a plan. You know what
Absolutely.
you need to work on.
And I know exactly who to talk to and who to train and who to give advice to. And it's really good. I can go to these trainings and I can learn something myself, learn a new procedure. Maybe this district is doing something a little better than I'm doing. I can hear that, and I come back and we put things in
Because
motion.
they're all like this. I
Yeah.
mean, every district is
Yeah.
going to have a certain area
Yeah.
that they need to.
Yeah. Coffee County is not the only district that has to go to trainings.
Right, right.
And, but I wanted you guys just to see this other piece to this, because that can be
Question.
stressful.
I have a question. On indicator 13, the secondary.
Yep.
You know, we're at 0%, the goal's 100%. What's the secondary transition?
Those are kids who are 16 years or older, and it's post-secondary, like job, what are they gonna do when they get out of high school, those kind of things. Those IEPs are pulled. They pull 4 IEPs. If they look at one and it's only 20, each one's 25%. So out of the 4, if one of them's not, you're already at 75%. If there's something wrong with the second one, you're at 50%. And we had 10 pulled. I've got a teacher working on them right now, and 10 were pulled for compliance. The things that they missed were using the word will in a goal. Instead of Johnny may participate in military service, state requires you to have Johnny will participate in the military service.
So
It's some is as simple as that. you know.
Right.
So it's even follow-up past high school
Yeah,
with
yeah,
these kids?
Yeah, that's what indicator 13 and 14 are for. Indicator 14 on there, did indicator 14 show?
No.
No.
Yeah, first page, it post-school outcomes.
Right.
Those are students, we have to do a survey every year. We have to contact every graduating senior that had an IEP and ask them what they're doing. And we have to report that to the State Department. And we have to follow their guideline. And if we miss it, we have to show contacts, we have to show, it's a whole document we have to fill out to send in to them. And if we miss it by one little piece, that's 100, that's 100, is that 100% one? No, we gotta be at greater than or equal to 28%. And we were at 26%, but look there, enrolled in higher education. 26.19% of our graduating seniors were enrolled in either CCAT or CTAC or college. Guys, a lot of that we don't have control over. That's one of those indicators that's hard, you know.
And you spend a lot of time chasing.
Yeah, yeah. We have a lady at the high school, she's one of our educational assistants, and we've set time out in her day when this comes through for her to contact and call and try to connect with all these, because you have to call. There was 40, I think there were 46 this year had to be contacted. And we had to show 3 forms of contact on every one of them.
Do
So
we ever
that's-
have anybody, Charlie, to contact us wanting somebody like this for a job?
Say that again?
Do we ever have anybody contact us that for, when they get seniors or, that, for a job like this, or is it pretty much they on their own, or?
Well, we try to provide them opportunities. They go through the work-based learning and they go through the supported employment, and there's some agencies that we work with, we try to put them in contact with. But once they graduate, our only thing we're doing is follow up to
Yeah,
see,
I
but we
didn't know
try
if-
to lay out all the options.
I didn't know if we ever had anybody to contact us wanting somebody for these type of people.
No one has contacted me directly and said, hey, I've got this job, do you have
Right.
anybody, But now I can't speak for the high school now. Miss Naomi, Miss Katie, they
Sure.
may be getting calls periodically, but
Sure.
I'm not hearing it. But listen, we're wide
Thank you.
open. If anybody's listening to us now that feels like they have something that students can participate,
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I
doors
was
wide
pointing-
open.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
doors wide open.
Warland and Mr. Westmoreland, thank you very much for your presentation. Any other questions, for demystifying, and hopefully the people out there watching on the YouTube video are going to get a great understanding of what goes on here too. And so.
Well, my door's open. All you got to do is, of course, if there's something confidential I can't speak to, I always say, well, I can't speak
Yeah.
to that. But,
Yeah.
but other than that, my door's open. I'm transparent. If you have any questions, just let me know.
And we know where you are.
That's right.
Charlie, thank you for your
All
vision.
these meetings, you kinda got to talk and just keep talking.
Again, if you guys need tassel credit or something, we can keep going.
Charlie, thank you for your vision and your heart and your passion and your service. Thank you. Wow.
All right. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. And I've learned a lot. So, while Dr. Blessing sets up for his presentation, if anybody needs any drinks or anything, feel free. I think I'm going to step out for a real quick.
There's hot apple cider in here, there's banana bread, cake pops.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We get
So, Mr. Hargrove, I know you've been bursting at the seams to see this data presented, so you give a quick intro.
All right. First of all, Dr. Blessing is going to give us his best, but he's feeling a little bit under the weather. And what he's going to do is share our TVOS growth data, which this is all public now, it's not embargoed anymore, and kind of coordinate and connect it with our TCAP or end of course performance data. So this pertains to the 24-25 school year.
Right. Well, thank you for taking time to be here this morning. I know that you've been through similar data presentations, but as we go through and you have questions, feel free to ask. Be glad to try to answer them. A reminder, when we look at our growth data, which is first, everything's going to be expressed on a scale of 1 to 5. And that was determined by this growth model, who knows, back from 1992. So 1 means that there is significant evidence that the growth was not what was expected. 5 is the other end, which means there's significant evidence that the growth was more than what was expected. And then in between you have the 2, the 3, and the 4. Now you'll see system-wide for this spring 2025 that we were a composite of 5. And that's great that we have that. But we have these other categories. We have literacy, which is a 3, a numeracy of 4, literacy and numeracy of 4, science is a 5, and social studies is a 5. And that's all the testing that was given. When you start going down these other rows, when it just says TCAP, that would be grades, depending on the category, from 3 through 8. Now, when you get over here to science, it's more like grades 5 through 8, and social studies is 6 through 8. When you see the letters EOC, that's end of course, and that's just your secondary subjects. And it's not all secondary students, it's just certain subjects. For instance, in math, there are 3. There's Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. For English, there's English 1 and English 2. For science, there's biology. And there's the social studies is U.S. history. And then if you combine those, the testing is here. These 2 are blank. The state hasn't released those yet. CTE students as a subcategory, the career and technical education, they'll be populated as soon as the state releases it to everybody. So again, you'll see that we have a mix of numbers ranging from 3 to 5. This year, and again, it changes from one year to the next. So it's never always consistent. But some years we've had 1s, some years we've had 5s. So this year, I think this last year was a fairly good year. By school, and again, the state, they release things in waves. First, they released the district, but this was still embargoed. Then they released this. Well, this, again, the embargo has been lifted. I do not know any pattern. I think it's just when they've got it prepared and they have presented it to the State Board of Education. That's when the embargo is lifted. So you can see these. I want to point out a few to you. We didn't have any that were just all 5s, but we did have a couple that were almost all 5s. Hillsborough, we see here they had a 4 in literacy. And the Raider Academy, again, very similar, a 4 in literacy. But I really want to point out 2 schools to you. One of them is middle school. They went from a 1 to a 4. They've been a 1 for a couple of years. They have really made some efforts, and I think we're seeing some fruit of that. We see a 4, a three numeracy, 3 here, 5 in science, and 5 in social studies. So they've really made some difference, I think. The other is Virtual Academy. They've been 1s, and this year they scored 3s. So I think those are both commendable for those schools and for the administration and the teachers, and especially the students. The students are the ones taking the test. So,
It's interesting to see that Hillsborough and Deerfield have a 5 in numeracy.
mhm,
So
yes.
they need to see what they're doing.
Well, you have to remember too, that this is one aspect of data. You really have to see both the growth and the performance to get a whole picture, because you can have high growth and low performance.
Okay. And this is the performance.
No, this is growth.
Right,
That's right. Yeah.
But
So
that's
again, and that is a good start. You say, okay, look at their growth. How can we see, how does that pair up with their performance? Yeah.
So good growth should translate down the road to better performance.
It should, and that's the whole idea of the model, is that if students, wherever they are, if they are making expected growth, well, they're going to stay where they are. If they're making less than expected growth, then that's not a good situation. But if they are doing higher, and it's always based on their testing history. So if they are achieving significantly more growth, then it should follow that their performance would be coming up. But again, does it come up in 1 year? Maybe not. May take a span of time, but that's a good point.
But also too, if you had a class that was 90, most of them average 98 percentile, their growth is not, it's going to be flat.
Not necessarily.
Can they go to 100?
You can't go to 100% on
How could they
percentile
do a
scale.
growth? How could they, unless they stayed, if they're 98 percentile already,
Well,
how could they show growth?
okay, you're mixing two different things.
No, I'm not, I'm talking about just growth.
I know, but percentile is different from growth. Percentile is a comparison to the rest of the group. If you say you're in the 98th percentile, 98% of the students scored below you.
Okay, how do you determine growth then?
Growth is based on how the group compares to, with a mean score, to
Same
the
difference.
group that you have, to your overall group of the same peers. Yeah.
Same.
Well, not necessarily. Percentile is more toward performance. Percentile lends itself more to
But what I'm saying,
performance.
if you have a high mean score, then you're not going to grow, you're not going to show a lot of growth.
There's
I mean, it's
only
just kinda
one
common sense.
situation in which you cannot show growth, and that's 2 years of perfect scores on every content test, and
But
that's
I mean, you're not going to
extremely
show
rare.
a lot of growth. You're
Yeah,
not going to be
it's
a 5.
possible, yeah, it's possible. But again, it's not impossible to grow even for high achievers. High achievers can also exhibit growth. Low achievers can exhibit growth, but again, it varies from group to group. You can have a group that scores really well in growth, not scoring as high performance-wise. There's like 4 different combinations. I could spell them out for you, but you probably say, please don't. So, okay. But other questions as we go through, certainly feel free to ask.
The high school,
Mm-hmm.
was it a 3 last year? And so it's,
Well, it varies. We've had the high school as high as 5s. So it's really based here on, you can't really even say cohort. Because when you're looking at elementary schools, every elementary student in grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, they take the same tests. But when you go to the EOC category, not every student takes Algebra 1 in the same year. So when you're looking at this group, you can't really compare it to the previous group in terms of tracking them and saying, oh, well, they were a 4 last year. Could be that potential, the group from previous, again, had more potential for growth, if that's an acceptable phrase. But this group coming in, for whatever reason, just did not exhibit the growth. Now, again, that's like when we look at performance data. For the high school, the English one, literacy, is only based on one test, and that's sophomore English. So for that sophomore English group, for this category, we can dig back and see how were they doing in English 1? How are they doing in that? And it could be, again, that for whatever, again, we have to dig and see why we could do that. That's called root cause analysis. So why did they not grow as much? And then we can start looking at, hopefully that doesn't put hormone levels in there, but sometimes things go a little wild and wacky. And there could be other issues interfering that we have no control over. Well, you could also look at, well, did we have some change of materials? Did we have change of staff? Did we have change of, there's so many factors that we can control. That's what we'd want to look at to try to figure out perhaps. You see, and that's the thing about data. I think Mr. Westmoreland mentioned when they gather data from the educational assistants, if they just take that data, put it in a pretty red folder, and file it away and don't do anything with it, wasn't really much purpose in gathering it. If you look at this, and again, you'd want to look at your performance as well as your growth and say, oh, wow, that's good, and then do nothing with it, doesn't really help. But the purpose of data is really to just inform. You can have good data, bad data, ugly data, but it's telling you something. And you have to try to figure out what it's saying and then make some decisions based on it.
Dr. Blessing, can I hold you up right there, give you
Do I have to raise my hand?
Yes. Principals meeting, we take our data provided to us. Dr. Blessing, would you mind sharing with the board our activity we had at our principals meeting analyzing our data?
Yeah. Our data comes from different sources. For instance, performance data comes from Pearson. It's the company that has the state contract. And they provide to us reports. And one of the kind of reports that we get is called a standards analysis report. And all the tests that are given are based upon these standards. And the state is really very generous. They don't keep us in the dark when it comes to test time. They used to. Years ago, you had no idea what was coming on the test. But then, again, I'd have to go back to see when the Truth in Advertising Act came out, when they were saying that Tennessee was an F. That they said, we're going to have to change some things. And they started providing the standards that we're going to have. And they provided blueprints to say, when this test is built, this category of standards will be 10 to 15% of the test. This next category is going to be 5 to 8% of the test. And they wouldn't give us test questions, but they would tell us the standards. But then they also provide practice test materials. They provide, and we now have it online, which is convenient. So when we get the standards analysis report, everything is keyed to the standards that were on that particular version of the test. And it would tell us how many questions there were of that, how many points were possible to be earned, what percentage of points did we earn. And depending on the level, it would be by teacher, it would be by school, it would be by district, and it would always tell us how the state compared. Well, we could go through then and start digging and see, okay, this standard, we were ahead of the state. This standard, we were right with the state. This standard, oh no, we weren't with the state. And we identified those, and we use, we all love to take highlighters and highlight things. So they would do one side in green if we were above. They would make it in yellow if we were below. And it would help give an idea of, okay, this group from last year, these are the areas they need to improve for this next year. Or if they're not going to be the same standards from one grade to the other, but they may be prerequisite standards. So if you can identify areas that need to improve, then you're a leg up. Or if you know that something's strong, you might say, oh, wow, how did we really do well on that standard? And we can dig and say, oh, well, this teacher was doing this, or they were doing that. So we really do get some good resources from the state.
So it allows us that drives our instruction on how we alter or may adjust how we do things, how we provide PD. If we've got a teacher that's achieving well in these 3 standards, we may have them serve as a coach or provide professional development for other folks in other buildings that may struggle with those standards. It kind of gives us a direction. And
what was interesting, we have a partnership with a company called NIET with our English language arts younger elementary's been working, and we did our activity in the principals meeting, and they were pleased because they were also trying to tie in standards with what they were doing with us. So I'm thinking, hey, so we're just not out there on some limb. Yeah.
That's good to know.
By grade level, you'll notice that here's from 3rd to 8th grade science. There's nothing here. Even though they tested in science, they say there's not enough length in the test or not enough elasticity to determine a growth. So that's why it's starting here in grade 5. And they don't test social studies at all in grades 3, 4, and 5. They say paused. I say frozen solid because I don't see it ever thawing, because that's more money. Wow. So you can see here, if you look at ELA, you can see some patterns, and you say, okay, they're not, wow, how do we have that 3rd grade of 1? Or how do we have this 6th grade of 1? Or you can go think and say, okay, how did we get a 5 here in grade 4? Or any of these. And you could go through and compare, and you can see. So even though you say, well, social studies for the district was a 5. Say, but if I have a 3 and a 5 and a 4, don't I add them all together and divide by 3? No. That's statistically not valid. That's not how you do those things. And I don't really know if it's a good idea to start talking about how they do it, but I'll be glad to try.
I know it's been quite a while, but are we still seeing any lingering effects from the COVID shutdowns? I know it really affected math, and there was a long tail on that.
Yeah.
But ELA seemed to bounce back. So
I think you will probably see effects that can be attributed to COVID, because right now people are still getting COVID.
right.
It's just not as severe, perhaps, or nationwide at the same time.
Well, we saw material effects in our test scores.
Yes, we did.
Which was, the
Yeah.
whole shutdown thing was a big mistake, but,
Yeah.
we recognize that now, but we saw effects, but I thought that ELA had bounced back much, but math had a very lingering effect from those shutdowns, and it's kind of an interesting study, I guess, seeing how that really impacted long-term scores and growth.
Yeah, and again, I think it would be challenging to isolate just to the COVID effect, but yeah, there certainly was an impact. I don't think there's anyone who would deny that.
the 3rd grade retention law probably has a little bit to do with why English language arts, the focus has bounced back a little
Right.
better than the math.
But never fear, the
Okay.
state's going to try to fail people because of math as well. Equal opportunity employers sort of thing. Well, actually, that's just somewhat, seriously, they were talking about that, adding math into the mix. I hope they don't. Not yet, at least. For the EOCs, these are the subjects I mentioned. you can see, and again, this is part of the thing Ms. Freda was talking about. Algebra 1's a 5. But if you look at the performance data, it's definitely not the highest. So, but again, we see a 3 here with Algebra 2, a 3 with Geometry, 4 with English 1, 3 with English 2, Biology a 3. This is the ACT. They even provide growth for us with this. A composite, again, we see mostly 3s across the board, a 4 here in reading.
Dr. Blessing?
Yes.
3s would be, we expect this.
It would be expected growth. And you have to remember, to me, I do not do this here simply because I don't want to cause more headaches than I already do. And that is, there's a history behind all these numbers. When I see these 3s, all 3s are not created equal. The scale that maps onto an overall of 3 goes from a -1 to up to a +1. So if someone has it's called an index. If someone has an index of -1.2, that's a 3. But if they have a 0.99, that's also a 3. So you have to dig a little bit deeper to get what I call the strength of the 3. Or Fred also mentioned about percentiles. They've now introduced a new measure to talk about the strength of these numbers in percentiles. And they say, what percentile is this group in? And it could be, which again I don't have here in this presentation, it could be here with this math on ACT, that final group, the juniors, the testing group, that they could have been in the 20th percentile. Well, that's not really where you want to be in percentile world. You'd want to be at least at 50 percentile or higher. So, as I say, not all these numbers are created equally, which may come up in this next slide. What a segue for doing that. These are the 16 systems. And I put them in order on their overall composite. Again, there's a lot of focused on the overall composite. And I don't want to make sure my talking interferes with them. But as I said, I put them in order. So you can see basically how we compare to our districts in our core region. And whenever we get this going, we can see that. And I don't think we compare too badly, But you have to remember there are 8 core regions in the state. And the South Central Core region is not always in the top region. Oh. So I do it just for comparison to give an idea of everything. It's not that, oh, look, we're so much better. Because if you look at the data, the numbers, there's so much room for improvement. I'd say in anything. And again, you don't want to rest on your laurels and say, oh, we were a level 5. Well, that's great. You have to realize too, data like this is already stale. It's the freshest data we have. That's called summative. But then there's formative data. Formative is what's gathered along the way. So we get an idea about it, but we can't just stop and say, oh, this percentage of students, they were met or exceeded expectations. Doesn't mean they're going to meet or exceed expectations for this next year or down the road. You have to always consider going through and looking at the current instruction. And teachers, they especially teachers who are more effective, they can go through and tell if they're teaching a certain standard, a certain lesson, and if they see glazed over looks, they say something's not connecting here. Some people would go through them, maybe you've seen teachers do exit tickets. An exit ticket is not just a wasted activity, or it shouldn't be. Maybe just 1 or 2 questions, and they say, wow, of the 20 students in this room, 2 of them got this right. Is it a bad question? Or is it that I didn't get something across to these people? Or if it tells you the other end, say, wow, of the 20 students, 17 of them are right on it. Well, that means you don't want to spend 2 more weeks on that same thing. So you gather this along the way, and if it's standards-based, then you are preparing them then for that big old summative assessment.
How relevant are trends looking at this? I know you have different cohorts.
We're going to look at some trend data.
Okay.
And again, there's trend data that's available to everybody in the world. If they just go to the right place, and I'm going to show that to you here. Just trying to keep a track of time, because I don't want Mrs. Westmoreland to be on the warpath with me. You sure? Okay. Okay.
And we got some schedule adjustments, so you're good.
I'm good.
We
Well,
have to move things around anyway, so you're good.
let's see first. I'm going to change that.
You're one of our highlight presentations, so this is why.
Oh, boy.
Charlie and you are the stars of the show today.
Well, but I think you'll find Charlie's rates are higher than mine. So, yeah. See, he's got to have that money for that big old budget. So, yeah. And I apologize on behalf of the storm or storms or whatever, because I think the rain stopped. It just said, let's get to this slide and then we'll turn the power off.
Are we back on the air too? Okay, so we're on the air. So I apologize to everybody out there. The power went off. Didn't have any control over that. So, but folks out in YouTube land didn't really miss anything. So we're starting back up again because we were in the dark here.
If you like, I can give you a proof to work on while I'm booting up. No? Okay. Oh, not another two-step verification.
I'm going over two-factor authentication.
Oh, I'll be doing that. I will be getting going to get with us in just a few minutes. So that's something that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where are we getting it from
We're
today?
gonna be getting it from J&G. We're having hamburger steak, baked potato, salad, and
Thank you, Melissa.
Hmm? La-dum.
Well, you made it.
Yeah,
here we are. Yay. Back
all
online.
righty.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, you can see in our core region, we had 4 systems who were 5s. Marshall County, us, Tullahoma, Franklin County. We had several 3s, a couple of 1, 2, that's all I see, but a few 1s. So again, if I was in one of these counties, I would go through and say, okay, how do we improve? And take it from there. You don't live here. You don't say, oh, boo-hoo, I'm on 1. I think I'll go paint houses for a living, you know. Or if you're here, like us, we're not going to say, oh, we're 5s, we've reached the top. No. This is transitional. Now, we're now
That is growth.
shifting.
That is growth.
This is
not
growth, that's
achievement.
right.
So, you know,
Mhm.
you could have growth and still not be achieving.
That's right. And again, what a good segue, because we're now changing over to performance data.
And that was my point, is that you don't sit on that 5.
That's
because-
right.
And that's awesome, though. I think it's great.
It is. But again, that's just one half of it. You really want to look at these numbers now. For instance, this is ELA. ELA talks about our grades 3 through grade 8 testing. When it gets to the EOC test, it'll give a subject. So we can see here that of the systems, and I've put the state of Tennessee average as well, and I've put us in orange here, that you can see in our district it ranged from a 40.9 at Manchester down to 27.3 for Wayne County. And if you're looking for statements to take away from that, at least for this year, we were in the top half in every category of testing for our region, which it's good because there's been times when we weren't. But we're not quite the state average yet with this, or at least this year's 38.9, because you have to remember this number is affected by the performance of all the other districts across the state.
And what is the state of Tennessee goal? Because they're setting goals for us on, I'm assuming is this ELA overall or third grade ELA?
This is 3rd to 8th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're setting goals for us for third grade ELA. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that probably isn't relevant to this.
Yeah, again, I really haven't seen statements where they said for the state of Tennessee for spring of 2026 testing, we want the state average in ELA to be this
Yeah.
or to improve by such percentage. I haven't seen such a
I
statement.
think Dr. Cornelius, when he comes in and does his quarterly report to us, he talks about that.
Yeah, and that's really more with like 3rd grade specifically.
Right, specifically
Yeah.
third grade, yeah. So
Yeah.
this is all, okay, got it.
Our state average went up.
It did
Okay.
for this one. Okay. For math, it ranged from a 45.2% met or exceeded for Lawrence County down to 22.3 for Wayne County. The average was 42.2. We were a little below that at 39.9. So you were talking about COVID effect and about English spring, but we were 34.2 here. And our math was actually 39.9. So it varies from year to year.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, that's bounced back, you know.
A
so,
little,
yeah.
yeah. But again, it's not like we bounced from 39.9 up to 72.3. That'd be
Yeah.
quite a bounce.
Yeah, unfortunately, it did not that, but
Like to see those bounces. For science, it was 54.2 for Moore County, down to 34.6 for Wayne County. And some of you saying, I think I'm picking up on a pattern for Wayne County. Well, but it's not, it doesn't hold. If you see some more slides down the road, it's not always Wayne County's. No, it's not true.
You know, I'm picking up a pattern for Lawrence County because they're in the top 3 so
Yeah,
far.
so far, yeah.
Well,
And the
some
state
others have
average
dropped.
here, yeah, we see 46.1. That's a higher average in the category of science. And we're 43.7.
I think Lawrence County was high last year, too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you sure can see all that. Social studies, Moore County, 61.2. And we were actually at state average in this category at 49%. All the way down to 33.6 for Bedford County. See, Wayne County's a little higher here, so don't pick on poor Wayne County. And you will see here, you talk about Lawrence County and Lincoln County. They're still here in the top half. Yes, they are. Really? There we go. I've never seen it do that before. Now this is, we've switched over. Notice it says a subject. That means it's an EOC test. And you look and say, Manchester was 94.7. Yeah, but you have to realize that's one honors class of 16 students. We also have one honors class at the same grade level. We had 100% of ours were met or exceeded this year. Doesn't always happen, but it did this year. All the way, and again, this is all the algebra testing. That includes the honor students in 8th grade, the regular students in 9th grade, the special ed students in 10th grade or higher. And ours, you can see, was 28.1%. The state average was 29.4%.
You know, that's kind of bad because that's not apples to apples when you've got
No, it's
16
not.
kids in honors class and
Yeah.
everybody else has got, that's not apples to apples.
That's true. It's not. And when I give this for the district to the principals, I do break it down to try to make it more
Right.
aptly.
Because if we had only excluded, if we only used our, it would be 100%, then you said.
For 8th grade, that's right.
Right, so we would be 100%.
And I bet you there would be several districts in the state
Right. it
who
would
are
be
like
the
that,
same
in
way.
the same boat we are, yeah. The low here, and don't gasp, 3.9% for Hickman County. Again, say, where's Wayne County? Well, Wayne County's up here. Where's Lincoln County? Lincoln County is over here. So they were like 1/10 along there with us. Lawrence County was up here, 38.5. So why is this so low? That would be a root cause analysis issue. Why? Well, when you start getting up to Algebra 1, you start getting students who are neither 8th grade, the honors, 9th grade, 10th grade, whatever grade there may be. I don't want Algebra 1, to some people, you'd say, you went through school, you all loved your math classes. I know I don't want to ask you to pick a favorite. But some people, you picked a favorite, didn't you, in your mind?
No, I didn't. I hated them all.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Not the teachers, the classes.
I say that what happened is you're in that group I say everyone loves math, but some people hide it better than others. You
That's
hit
a
it.
very nice way to
You
put
hit it
Dr.
well.
Blessing.
You hit it well.
I continue to hide it very
You
well.
continue to hide it very well. But regardless, when you start getting to these math classes, the higher ups, it's going to start getting more differentiated. And this is one of the first biggies. I mean, there's psychological theory and gestaltism and things like that. So please don't talk about things like that. I won't. So, Algebra 2, you'll see Moore County, 47.2. And Moore County is not a huge county, is it?
No.
It has 2 schools, 1 school in which they teach Algebra 2. So we don't know how many this is. I mean, when we look at trend data, you can tell. But you see 47.2 down to a 6.3 in Fayetteville. State average of 34.6, ours was 28.1. That was a slight drop for us from the previous cohort. Geometry, you can see Lawrence County, 40.1 is the high, 11.9 the low in Fayetteville. State of Tennessee, 36.8, we're at 27.2.
Dr. Blessing, you mentioned several times this root cause analysis.
Yes.
Do you do root cause analysis routinely on these different subjects?
Every school, as part of their school improvement plan, which they do annually, they're supposed to do a root cause analysis to dig, to say, why? Well, and depending upon what goal they're looking at, it could be, for instance, if you were doing chronic absenteeism, and if you were doing, say, why do we have chronic absenteeism? And they may look and say, we have a large health impaired population. If you have a large health impaired population, there's likelihood they're going to miss a lot of school. Yeah. So you would do the same sort of thing, for instance, with geometry. Again, really your favorite of the math, I know. Geometry, why is it at 27.2? You say, yeah. See, it just ties in. And you want to dig. Well, and you can dig at different levels. The school can look at the whole geometry set of teachers. A teacher can dig for one class, or they can look at all 5 classes. Because, you remember when you were in school that you may have had English first thing in the morning, and you loved it when you had English first thing in the morning because you were a morning person. And then the next year you had English 5th period. Sleep? No. That you're learning by osmosis then. Let it creep on in, yeah. But in, the next year, let's say it was 5th period, let's say, and again, not that the teacher has anything to do with it, but you were saying that maybe I didn't G-haul quite with that, maybe you could look for things like that. But again, looking for it is really just the first part. What you going to do with it? Just like any data, what you going to do with it?
All our schools' improvement plans are found on ePlan. You can look at any school out of any one of those districts.
But I'm
what
not
their
sure
root
if they
cause
can
is.
see that aspect of their plan.
Okay.
They might only be able to see the goals and the actions and strategies. Yeah, but I'm not sure if they can see the root cause analysis.
Would still
part.
find those things are derived from the root cause. You'd be able to discern what the goals were, where the challenges were.
Mr. Blessing, each year we go through this, and, we see these fluctuations that are met or exceeded. 2 to 3 to 4%. Bouncing through, which usually is around 25 to 30% of our students. Pretty close, right? Is that your percentage? That's your percentage? Rate?
You're talking about percentage of fluctuation?
Well, no, I'm talking about our average scores of.
Oh, okay, I got
Are
you.
exceeded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which ultimately results in 70 some odd % of the rest of our students are either in approaching
Or below.
or below.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bigger number to me. That's the bigger volume of our students.
We're going to see just
We're gonna
what
get
you're
to it.
talking about
Good deal.
in just a few minutes. Yeah,
Just tell
but
me to be quiet. Wait,
No.
I'll see it.
no, it's just an earlier segue. That's
You're
all.
leading it into things, yeah.
English 1, you see 42.4% for Lawrence County, down to 20.7 here. We were actually above state average slightly here. 41.4, state average was 39.2. For English 2, See, wow, 65.8% here, 36.9% here, 54.3%, 48.9%. So why are those higher? Well, I can tell you one reason. English 1 and English 2 have exactly the same standards. They go through, it's like a 2-year package. So when they take English 2, it's not a brand new set of standards. It's a brand new test, but it's not a new set of standards. So it's their second time in that rodeo. I think that probably has something to do with that. Biology, 55.6 here. Let me see, Lincoln, 22.2 here. Harry, state average 45.7. We're a little lower than that, 40.4. Yeah. Okay, now let's get to, I think, what y'all been alluding to. This is called the state report card. And this is available to everybody. All you have to do is Google Tennessee State Report Card. You'll get a link and you'll go here. I know it says 23, 24. The state is lazy. They haven't updated the number yet. But the data that we're going to look at is, let me do this. These are all the districts. Let's see if I can find us.
You know, on that other.
Yeah, I found it.
On that other part we were looking at, to me, it'd be a simple goal to meet state average. That could be our first step up. And
Well,
then
there's
hopefully
only,
go on to
there's only
60
one
and
problem.
70%.
There's only one problem with that. We have no control over state average. Because we have
Well,
no
I mean,
control.
we could look at what the state average was this
The
year.
previous
Right,
year.
and
You-
make that our goal, that we're
you
going
could.
to meet that or exceed that for the next year.
You could, but it would be based on the previous year.
Right,
That's right.
right.
That, again,
Starting point, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
okay.
Something to shoot for.
Not, it's not
Now,
unattainable.
this gives you a lot of information about
Should
the
be.
system. We want to look at 25 data, and this is, Mr. Gilly was talking about, what you were asking about with trends. You have all the way back to 2021 on this particular graph, and you have the ability to change and filter this report card at your leisure. For instance, overall ELA is every ELA test in the district. If you just want ELA, you have to change it. And you can see trends like with approaching, for instance. You can see back in 2021, this, again, COVID was real still, that effect is going in place. You can see 50.9%, and you see it starts to drop. Well, if approaching drops here, and then it started going up just slightly here, where can they go? They either have to go back to below, or they go up to met, or even to exceed it. So you can see all this. You can see the overall proficiency rate here on the side. And also, if you were to, you know, when you have time and you go and you hover over a graph, up pops information about the whole year. You see the number below, you see the percent. Number approaching, the percent. You have all of that information available. So that means that anyone, I mean, I picked Coffee County, I could just as well have gone to Trousdale, or I could have gone to Davidson, or I could have gone anywhere, because it's all there. It's transparent.
Well,
So,
just worried about us.
oh, yeah, I will.
Correct me if I'm reading this wrong. From what I see here, when I start talking about our other 70-some-odd percent or 50% of students and stuff of that nature below the meeting expectations or exceeding, looking at a 3-4 year trend there and looking at those percentage numbers, we're growing our below from our approaching. we're holding pretty steady with our meeting and exceeding. There's less percentage fluctuations between the meeting or exceeding versus our approaching and below. And that contains the majority of our students in those two areas of meeting and below.
Yeah, you really had you've got a lot of meat in that statement. Because, I mean, it's a lot you
But am I
covered.
interpreting that
Well-
information properly?
Well, for
When I see
instance,
those over the last 3 or 4 years are below expectations, growing just a few percentages, and our approaching growing,
okay,
or coming down, but it grew in our,
I'll disagree with parts.
okay.
For instance, the below. Look, come on in. I'm gonna start the whole data presentation over. No, just kidding. Just kidding. For instance, back in 2021, it was 23%. And again, we're looking at this, I don't know what color that is, whatever that pretty color is. And then it did go up here, but then it's going down, going down, going down. So we're not growing the below. We're not.
Okay, I got my colors.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm
You
trying
have
to
to be
read the
very,
bottom of your,
you have to be very careful with the colors. That's true. But that's like, again, the approaching. 50.9 started going down, but here, we don't want it to go up. We want, if it does go up, we're wanting them to go upward, not backward. The green, this, whatever that lime color is, seems to be more steady.
Well, that's the one that needs to move,
That one,
because it'll move all the other three
well, we want
down.
that, yeah,
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we meet expectations, if we grow in that area,
that's good.
then the other three are gonna go, you're not gonna have as larger percentage in the other areas, because we're going up where we're supposed to.
This is just.
And we certainly, that would be a larger pool of students. But we also want to consider whatever color, aqua, I don't know. 2.1, 5.2, 6.0, 6.0, 6.8.
don't get me wrong, I love the above expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I also worry about those 65% of our students that are
Right.
below or approaching.
And that's
Trying to-
where-
I'd rather have a great big meeting though.
Yeah, so, and the thing is, what you're saying,
Y'all
we got a
understand?
large group of approaching. What we gonna do about it? And what we're gonna do about it, that's why we have tutoring.
Yep.
We have, especially with third grade, with the retention issue. And that's something else I wanna show you. Notice this says all grades, so this is 3 through 8.
We want to flip the orange and the green, right, Robert? We want to flip the orange and the green, right?
If you move, like I said, if you move the green up, you're gonna flip it.
Yeah, exactly.
Notice how
Doing
you can focus in just on grade 4, or grade 6, or grade whichever.
Yeah, okay, I'm following your colors, I can finally, there they read.
Yeah, it is hard to read. I apologize on behalf of the state.
So Ms. Frieda, as we look at our after-school programming and our tutoring program, we're going to target,
Yeah, that
The-
grade 4 chart right there looks.
we're going to target those children that are in the orange.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you can see here, remember for overall, it was 34-point-something%. It's 42.7% for grade 4. So their behavior is a little bit different. And again, you can look at this as following one cohort to the next.
What about grade 3, since that's the pivotal grade where,
Let's look at grade 3.
Yep.
What's happening? Oh, boy.
Pivot.
It went 32.9 here, 21, it dropped, went up a little, then stayed about the same. And you can see again, it's just,
But when you
little
go to
wave.
fourth grade, when you go to fourth grade, you see a large amount of success.
You see more, that's right. And again, is that the same picture? Would I say that's across the state? No. It's gonna vary from district to district, and I say it's gonna vary from school to school. It's gonna vary from fourth grade teacher to fourth grade teacher. Cause you've got, you know, can we say this honestly? We have effective teachers, but some seem to be more effective than others. And that's again why you would wanna go and say, what's your secret? Cause some of them do have secrets. Some of them don't wanna share their secrets. They want us to be, but most do. Most are, they want their schools to be successful.
Dr. Blessing, do you also go from county to county on those that are so high and say, what is your secret in your county?
Well, there is, it's not on this particular website, it's called the TVOS website. They have a feature called a scatter plot, and it puts them all there in this big old conglomeration of dots. And you can go through and you can use it to help identify schools that are similar to you, who are maybe higher in growth or higher in performance. And that can help then say, okay, there's no use for me to reach out to Williamson County, to this one who's doing 92.3%. if I'm down at 28.1%. But maybe I can reach out to someone who's doing 40% or someone who's doing closer to that, because otherwise it can be very discouraging for teachers. Say you meaning you want me to jump from 27.2% to 94.3%. Eventually, yes, we would love for you to be there, but let's take steps to get there. But yeah, there's a tool you can use.
But you would want to look at a program that's doing 98%. That doesn't mean that.
But it may not be a program. And see, that's what would be interesting to me, is let's say you do identify these schools that are using the same program you are. You say, okay, and then maybe collaborate and come up with some ideas like, can we come and see this in action?
If they're 98%.
And see what's going on.
You want to go to the schools that are really performing.
And
in my opinion.
And some of the schools that are really performing, if you see that they're doing things because they're more affluent, because if you look at your higher performing data schools with performance data,
Expectations.
they're usually more affluent. And again, the expectations may be higher. The parents are saying,
Well, we got to have high expectations too.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
But the high expectations can't just be
In other words,
stated.
I don't agree with you.
You don't agree with high expectations?
I don't agree with you saying that we should go to a school that's affluent and has got good programs.
No, I'm saying we shouldn't do it right away. We should build. I mean, we can't just necessarily jump, because what if we go to that and the people that said, we can't afford what they're doing?
But then we
No,
would
I don't
know
agree
that.
with that.
Okay,
Then we
well,
would
maybe
know.
we can.
Ms.
afford it.
Frida,
We just increase
Ms. Jones, I will let you know that Dr. Atkins is the superintendent of schools in Lawrence County, and in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're supposed to gather, but their school system is a lot like ours.
Right.
So we'll have a little share time. I don't know whether he's coming here. I'm probably going there, so.
Right. And I know what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
but that's limiting us, saying we can't do any better. You know, we're going to
I
go
did
to
not
a
say that.
mediocre school. But anyway, I did see this other day, which I believe is a lot of truth to it. Test scores, look at how big the houses are around that school.
Oh.
And a lot of times that correlates with high test scores. I mean, it's just, and that's sad.
Mhm.
But, and it kind of goes along with what you're saying. But we've got to get beyond that. We've got to
Yes.
expect our kids to be just as affluent as kids that live in an area with a huge home.
Not as affluent, but as successful.
Yes,
We
sir.
can't change the
It's
influence.
successful, right.
Yeah, so, yeah, and the thing is, you said high expectations. You almost have to set the taste of the student, the parent, the school, everything for, this is what we
And it
are
doesn't have to be
expecting.
that complicated, you know.
No, it's not complicated, but it's hard to turn a ship. But you turn ships turn all the time. But you gotta figure out where you're going. I mean, you gotta have a goal, and you gotta think, okay, how am I gonna get there? And that's what you have to go through that process. And again, nothing wrong with aspiring to being just like, or just as high as some of those more affluent districts. But that's what studies show with respect to performance, that more affluent districts have higher performing, but with growth has no correlation. You can have just as much growth with economically disadvantaged
Have
as you
more
can.
because they're at the bottom.
Yeah, so that's why all this data we've been looking at has been, it's important to look at both sets. You just don't want to focus on one or the other. But you can go through, as I say, I don't try to make people dizzy. There's nothing here under the schools, yet they haven't updated that. They only have the districts. But you can go to the state report card. You can take time. You can investigate any of those different trends that you want to see, because it's there for every subject that we've talked about today, with the exception of, I don't see ACT on this yet. But if you wanted to, I'll pick it up. You see 97.6% of our ninth grade students were met or exceeded. And the reason why you don't see some of these graphs, they say if you have really, really high or really, really low in one category, they won't display any of it. It's called suppression. It's a business rule they use. They say that because you can identify, it may be easy to go in and identify students who didn't make the 97.6%. So, okay. If there are other questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But I think, I don't know what time it is. It's 11:31. I see by this convenient laptop in front of me. I think Melissa's probably going to be ready for y'all to enjoy lunch here soon.
You taking any questions?
I think I've taken one or two.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dr.
Yeah, I'll be
Blessing?
glad, as I say, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So really, I mean, as Sprita and Robert have pointed out, is we're the numbers aren't changing much, and we got to kind of flip the orange and the green, in most categories. Obviously, here we're doing okay. Well, back to 22, we don't have the current data on that, so that's probably not a good one to look at. But how do we get there? Because we're not, it looks like overall in the trends, we're not moving the needle much. And I know we're talking about some different programs to flip those numbers, and that's really where we need to put our budget dollars, I guess.
Yeah.
I think
Well-
we can be proud of being a 5.
Huh?
We can be proud of being that 5.
Yes, we can. And just like with any that, I think we want to celebrate our successes, and we want to recognize areas that we want to improve. But the question is how? How are we going to get there? Well, that takes, we say, well, just work harder. You ever tell students to work harder? Some of them, they don't know how to work harder. You have to
Depends on the
support them.
subject.
We have to support, and again, what does that support look like? Well, monetarily, we're supporting them. As the state has released high-quality instructional materials, don't you like, and they call it HQIM. Sounds like a radio station to me. Thanks for tuning in to HQIM. This is Dr. Blessing. I'll be your host for the next 3 hours. But high-quality instructional materials, that's a foundation. Well, what are teachers going to do with it? That's why it would be important if someone is using the same choice we made, and if they're being more successful, how are they being more successful? What are they doing? So that's where we need to do. And like you were talking about pairing up with or doing some visit with Lawrence County, we're picking their brain because we saw Lawrence County's data or part of their data. There isn't just what I'd call a single key to success. in this. Every district's gonna have to answer that for themselves. Otherwise, the state would come in and answer it for us. And they can't. But we can. But we just have to figure out what that is. Now that the preaching's over, we'll pass the plate and the choir's gonna sing. No? Okay.
The choir number.
This is off the record, it's not anything to do with what we're talking about. Every time I see you, I think about years ago when Chanel was in your math class.
Uh-huh.
And they rode your yard.
No.
And I think,
That
and
will
I
be in
didn't
the-
know this, I didn't know this for years later. And I found out they had rode your yard, and this is when she was up here working with you, and she was telling us what they did. She said, I can't believe we rode
dress
Dr.
code.
Bless's yard. And he came out after, and I won't say
Funny
which
kids
girl it
rode
was,
his
but
yard.
she tried to get in the car, and they drug her, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Every time I see you, I think of them, I think of Chanel rolling your yard.
Okay.
They loved you as a math teacher.
Yeah, nothing expresses love like vandalism.
I mean, really, nobody gets their yard road unless they're live.
Really? Oh, I must have been adored.
I'm not sure that's true, but
Dr. Blessing is outstanding at explaining data and some of these graphs and how we performed and areas of need. We appreciate his dedication and stories. I think he had several of our board members in class.
No.
But thank you, Dr. Blessing.
No, I won't. What's the shame is when I go to the high school and people who were my students, I have retired.
Thank you, Dr. Blessing, that was
All right.
informative.
You're quite welcome. And again, anytime if you have questions, I'll be glad to try to address them.
You always do, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's where all the misfits win.
Well, while we wait for Melissa to get back, and I'm assuming she's going to be back shortly, is that the next item on the agenda is Ms. Matthews, and I'm, hopefully we can get through this in the next 20, 30 minutes. So
Well,
the floor is yours.
okay. I'm totally unprepared. I've had a crazy morning. But I guess where I'll start is we probably have all seen how much fundraising is going on here in the district. And I get a lot of questions and a lot of calls and text messages with people asking why, or what is this fundraiser, what is that, what is it going to, who does this benefit, what do they need this for, that kind of thing. And, well, I'm a parent of an athlete, and so I'm involved in some of the fundraising myself and support it. But so I can kind of see, the different sides of it, and I think there's a lot to it. I mean, a whole lot, and I know Chris and I think Scott have worked on a lot of this and probably have, at this point, a lot more knowledge on it than I do, so we can open up the floor to them. But what I see is we have revenue and non-revenue sports. Robert, I know a lot about that. And from what I can tell, our non-revenue sports, a couple of them do not charge player fees, and maybe one or two do charge player fees. But that's all because they're generating revenue through gates and tickets and stuff like that. But we've got some sports that are participating in those revenue events that aren't included in the funding side of it. They don't, for instance, cheerleaders, I don't believe, are getting, unless it's out of general athletics, a portion of that, anything from any of their gates at football and basketball games. Well, a lot of a lot of people come just to watch cheerleaders or dance team or band, but I'm not aware of any of the revenue from the gates going to those. All that to say that we've got player fees up to $900 a player or a participant. On top of that, we're asking our parents and our kids to fundraise between 7 and 10 fundraisers a season. You're almost never without a fundraiser. So I guess what I'm asking is for us to dig in and see, is our district supporting our programs like we should? I've got a little bit of data on it, a little bit of, apparently there's a certain amount of money set aside for all those non-revenue sports, around $45,000. More than half of that is eaten up by gym floor maintenance and football helmet reconditioning, two things we can't not do. So only about 20-ish thousand is divided among about 13 sports that are non-revenue. That leaves about anywhere from 1,100 to maybe 1,500 total per sport, which is crumbs. Honestly, it's crumbs. It comes down to, if, for instance, I'm using cheerleading, and I'm not targeting cheerleading at all. It's just I happen to know. I know that this is happening across the board for non-revenue sports. If you've got 30 cheerleaders, and the district has given $1,100 towards cheerleading, that comes out to about $35 a cheerleader. And then we ask our parents to each pay $900 each. And our entire district has only given $35, $36 per cheerleader. That's hard on parents. It's real hard on them. It's hard on grandparents. I know parents who have taken second jobs to help their kids participate in extracurricular. So we've got a lot of fundraising going on. The question is, do we need as much fundraising as we're doing? And why are we doing that much fundraising? Are we doing it because our district isn't supporting the teams? Do we really need that much fundraising? Or do we not? Do we want to cap how many fundraisers can be put on parents and students? Do we want to say no more than 2 or 3 per year per group or organization? And I'm not picking on athletics. This would be for any club or organization. Do we want to cap it? Do we not want to cap it? Do we want to contribute more money so that we don't have as much fundraising? I don't know. I just want to explore it and see where we are. Do we need to continue it? Do we need to cap it? Or do we as a district need to support these programs to where we're not having to run 8, 9 fundraisers a year per program? There's more to it. There's a whole lot more to it. That's just one piece of it. And there's a lot of financial info that could go along. I've looked at some of it. It's what I've received is fairly vague. It doesn't give me a whole picture of transaction line items with what's coming in, what's going out. If you've got a group that's got a $15,000 balance, and why are we charging $900 a player or participant if you're sitting on $15,000? If you're sitting on $27,000, why are we continuing to fundraise and ask for more? Like, I wouldn't think that we would want those balances to be huge, because we would want to cycle it through. What we take up is going back to those players and those families and those people who donated. Why would we want to build a big balance and not use it? So there's a lot more to it, a lot more to fundraising than just that. That was really the point that I wanted to address, but I know there's more to it. There's a lot of questions about the type of fundraisers that we have. If raffle ticket drawings are okay or not. There's a lot of legality behind all that. I'm not the expert on it at all. But I'll just open the floor to questions and comments right now.
So, and there's even stuff like band. I hear
There's
from
band.
band people all the time too
Yes,
about
yes, and they
excessive
feel like they are
fundraising.
underfunded. You know,
Yeah.
what can we do to help?
Right, and how many, you might know Miss April, just from word from high school way, do we have any accounts or athletic accounts or these other accounts that basically at the end of the year have any money left over? Very,
So I would have to look at that. I don't, so
I
the
don't-
auditor usually like looks at that and will say, okay, this balance will have to be spent on these children. And so we try, I mean, I will speak and say I haven't looked, but we try to keep minimal balances to roll over unless there's a large expenditure that we're
Yeah.
expecting in the next school year.
like I know as an SSO, football tries to hold on to enough money to start the next year. And that's usually around $3,000 to $5,000. The quarterback club. Now, I don't know about what football coach and what inside the school accounts and all that good stuff. I don't know about all that. I don't know what they do, but I know the quarterback club tries to hold some money on hand because we try to come into the spring and start some things and be able to go buy some food and feed them in spring practice, you know, and feed the boys and things of that nature. I agree with Holly 150%, but I'm going to be a pro advocate here that direct funding needs to step up. That's the reason we're squeezing our community so hard, is because regardless of the fact, it still costs around the same amount of money, just like the cheerleaders. To get $35 a kid, but then it costs $900 just to transport them, get them there, feed them during games, all this kind of stuff. Football players, you're talking about 85 to 130 kids. Well, we're gonna load them on a bus. They're gonna have lunch at 12 o'clock. We just expect them to jump on a bus, go to Franklin, Tennessee, or wherever, be back at 11 o'clock at night, and then we're not gonna try to feed those kids. I mean, that just ain't hardly right anyway. So that's where the quarterback club comes in. They buy their food, stuff of that nature. And it costs about roughly $1,000. Even if you've done the cheapest of meal, that's $10 per player. It's $1,000 to $1,500 every time we feed them. That's $1,000, $1,500 before a game. That's $1,000, $1,500 6 hours later at 11 o'clock just to get some pizza in them or something so the kids can go home and not just be dead after playing a football game, you know. And I'm just speaking because football was one I was just right up in the middle of. I learned every bit about it. And the money's, and she's exactly right with the amount of cost. Is it sounds astronomical, but it's not. I mean, we're talking this $900 is bare minimum and requiring, I'll have to check, but I don't believe our policy allows. I know it's certain, I don't know that it cuts it out, the requirement for fundraising or the wish to, but you certainly can't hold it against a child for participation or anything else.
Actually, on that, I asked about that, because it didn't sound right to me that any
Yeah,
coach
that's-
could hold it against a child.
No.
According to Ben Torres at TSBA, it can. It
No,
can
that's
be.
Title IX, and that's straight up discrimination.
Our athletic department, and I've spoke to our.
I'm not, no,
I
anybody
understand.
does at all, but I was,
I hope not.
yeah. I was kind of shocked for
Yeah,
him
it's,
to tell me that.
I do know it's in our policy, and I do know with Title IX rules and laws and everything else, you don't discriminate over
My question was to
race,
him,
sex, anything.
can a student or an athlete be withheld from participating if they did not make the fundraiser requirements? And he said yes, that they could be.
Well, according to
I don't
according to the
Yeah.
state statute on it and the internal financial guide, I don't remember exactly the full name on that, but it's against the law if they're discriminated against. Plain
My
and simple.
question is, do we know of any student that is being withheld from being able to participate in Coffee County schools because they could not afford to pay or do? I don't know of any, and And if there are any, they need to be going talking to the principal. If that's a problem for Coffee County Schools, then we need to take care of it. But if that's not a problem, then we need to move to the other things that is a problem that we need to discuss. But I've not known of anybody being pulled from being able to be part of. Now, there could be some that I just don't know about. Now, I'm asking, does anybody know of any?
I don't know of anybody, but I can say that I'm sure there's several students that would like to participate that know they cannot come up with that money, so they're not even in the program. So that's the issue. There may be kids that could participate in some of these things that don't even try because they know that their parents can't afford it.
And it may,
Because they
you know,
know.
that's definitely
Yeah.
something we could probably look at plugging into policy is some sort of plan of how to attack those kind of things. Like football, we never had a mandatory fee. However, we would love and gave every player about 6 months, and they had plenty of tools to try to raise up to $1,000. Well, we only
Find
had 3 or 4
sponsorships.
kids. Huh?
Find sponsorships.
Yeah, we only had 3 or 4 kids that ever actually did it.
Was you ever able, Ms. Matthews, to get that information on what we had asked for, what you had asked for about the, how many participation, how many groups was asking for money and
No.
what that were?
No, I think I had asked Mr. Hargrove for
Athletic.
a list of fundraisers. Is that what you're
Yes.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a list of fundraisers for the calendar year so that we could see how many we've had and how they were approved. That's another question I get a lot. What is the level of approval required? And I just, it's just, I guess, a matter of me knowing the policy.
I thought at one time, maybe it's not in place anymore, but that a school couldn't have so many fundraisers.
Well, and I thought that too, but I could be wrong. And that's just, it's just coming up to me, how many fundraisers are y'all gonna have?
No, Frida,
You know?
about 4 year ago in a work session, we brought that up and it was discussed, but I don't think anything was ever changed.
Well, and it's hard on the
And I
kids.
think there was a
to
limit,
fundraise
wasn't there?
12 months out of the year.
Well, and it's, there's pressure on the community too, it's kind of
Small
like,
businesses
Yeah.
are
Oh,
being
it's terrible.
just nailed constantly. Parents, community, grandparents, and everybody feels obligated, and it's gotten so saturated in fundraisers that people say, forget it, I'm not donating to anything. Because about the time I say yes to this girl, this boy next week is gonna show up on my doorstep wanting something else.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
don't wanna tell anybody no, so I just don't do it at all. And then everybody suffers.
yeah,
I want to can I throw a monkey wrench in too?
sure, why not?
Been there, done this, and it was the same way 20 years ago. We have a tendency to wear our same contributors out and ride that. My point, in my mind, my struggle, what are we going to drive? Because you're going to get what you pay for, and I'm playing this is the devil's advocate. It's not that I disagree or agree, but with what's been said, we're going to drive a Raptor, or are we going to pay and drive a Hugo? What do we want our children in?
Well, on that thought there, let me be your devil's advocate on that.
Come on.
All right.
Devil's advocate.
One.
Devil's advocate.
We're in the business of education.
Correct.
All right. First and foremost, our mission statement says, to provide the best education for our children.
Right.
With that being said, we can educate without sports, without a lot of the other outside groups.
Mm-hmm.
High school football cannot exist without education.
Correct.
Our high school baseball. We can educate without sports, but they cannot have the sports without the education. So,
I am right in that pit. That's why student comes first in student athlete.
Right.
Because your athleticism is only going to carry you so far in life.
Exactly.
Your education, nobody's questioning that. My question is, if we are going to take sports out of it, if we're going to have clubs at school, we're going to have and fund these things, what's our level of funding? Do we want to do a great job of fund level of raising so we have a great this?
Or are we okay with just that? It's complicated. It
Oh, it
is
is.
very, very
complicated.
complicated.
Well, I look at it this way. You're gonna, we educate the kids, but we've got to keep them in school. They've got to be motivated. They got to want to be there. And a lot of kids stay in school because of extracurricular activities, because of sports. And so it works. It's a
Yes, ma'am. works
together. You almost have to have both. But I hate to see some kids left out
Yes, ma'am.
because they
No
don't have
doubt.
the money to do it. And that's where it's sad, is that there's.
If we know about it, I mean, that's not something we're okay with.
Right. And also, too, I have a concern about teachers not having the supplies or whatever they think they need in the classroom, and they're on Facebook, asking for. To me, that needs to go. They need to be going to their principal.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we've got money for those things, and that needs to be
Yes, ma'am.
communicated that, look, don't be asking the community, we need to fund you. If you don't have the funds, we need to come up with it. If you need that in your classroom, that should be a priority for us as a school board to make sure that those teachers have what they need, whether it's Kleenex or whatever. I just think that's a bad image for our school system for
Yes,
that to
ma'am.
go on.
Wholeheartedly.
Well, I have a question, what you brought up, Polly. Just in fairness, if we've got cheerleaders, if we've got band, if we have these various groups supporting the football team, the basketball team, why isn't there a split done? Why don't we go, we've got 80 football players, we've got 35 these. So each group will split whatever comes in the gate.
They do. Like I know for a fact in football games, certain percentage of the gate fees go into the general.
Hey, Robert, can you move?
Broken amongst all these.
I know your voice projects, but can you move the mic a little closer?
You want me to say it again? I know for a fact that like football gates at football games, when we have home football games, certain percentage of all the gate fees are put into the main athletic budget or account there at the high school, and it's split for the other organizations that don't have a lot of fundraising, don't have gates and
Is
stuff like
that
that.
where the breakdown on the 45,000 is coming into, where it shows baseball gets 1,500, cheerleading gets 1,100, dance team gets 1,100?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that-
Yes.
Okay, so nothing on top of that?
The gates, because that's the only thing that I
That's
know.
the gates.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that
but
includes
like-
what, does that also
Well-
include?
System.
the system?
You've got system pass,
Athletic
you got
buckets.
system pass for football, system pass for the athletic. You got two different ones that are split at the high school, correct? It goes out there from the board.
I'm
every
asking
year.
Amy because I don't know how the split. I think that was just. I think the splits were decided like
Yeah,
years
you got
and years
you
ago,
got a
and
middle
they've
school,
never
you
been
got a
looked
middle
at.
school pass and you got a high school pass. And that's the, I think 20 or 11,000 and then 25,000. It's not much. Because I
It's
remember the last time I
40
tried to get system pass just,
45,000 for high school.
Okay.
And 33, I think, for middle. I think is what it.
45,
was-
yeah, we did raise it a little bit. I think I come in here wanting 150
It
and
was-
It was
75.
2 or 3 years ago, it was increased.
Yeah, it was increased, and that's the only direct that I think can be just, here it is in a pot of money, if cheer needs something or blah, 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 stuff like that. Now, obviously, there's other fundings of field parts and maintenances and supplements and things of that nature for the coaches, but as far as just direct monies that I think they could spend on whatever.
Another
But
question I
when-
have.
I know what it was. When that did go to 45 and 35, the rule changed to where the schools and everyone is required to do all of the sanding of their gym floors and all of that on their own and not from the other pot anymore, because that's where we got into it about swapping wallets.
There was,
Remember when we done that and we was just swapping wallets?
I don't remember.
We had the, Thomas, you were here when we
I
when we
think so,
raised
and
the
I'm
system
trying to
pass
remember
for
that
athletics.
conversation, yeah.
for the
That
high
was
school and the
fine.
middle
It kind of
school.
got presented and kind of got done that way, but
Right.
the end result, we had to turn around and those teams and athletic departments had to start refinishing their own gyms.
Right. Yeah.
When this
So it
was,
just swapped, they just added the money to do that over here, the system passed to make it look like we was getting more money, but we had to do more work.
when this was looked at, this is whenever, we were taking care of the, scuffing coats for the high school and also the middle school. The schools were actually, their ADs was taking care of getting it lined up, then we would have to get it approved, going through this whole process. So yes, that amount of money was given to the schools to take care of that part. As well, at the same time, the amount that they were receiving was increased at the same time. So it wasn't just swapping, like what you're saying. Was the money from up here given to the schools to take care of those parts? Yes, it was, plus more money, and that's how it was handled at that time, yes.
So the gate,
I
Amy
think
sent me the gate information. So 8% of basketball gates go between the minor sports. So 8%, and I would assume it'd be at the end of the season, when basketball season's
8%.
over, 8% of that will be split between the minor sports, and then 10% of football is split between the minor sports.
So 8% split between 13 other sports programs?
Yeah, whatever I don't know how many
I
minors
mean,
there are,
how
but
much could that be? If you're splitting it 13 ways?
Very little.
Yeah, not much.
Not much.
8% split 13 ways?
Right.
I mean, I don't know who
That's-
decided that. Was
That's another
like
crumb. you know?
years and like
Yeah.
that number's
Right.
not been
It's
looked
probably,
at. Like,
it could have changed by now. I'm just the whole point is, and like you said, how well do we want to do?
And that
You know?
does factor in, I mean,
It
what,
does.
what is acceptable? Because I struggled as a former coach.
Yeah.
I struggled with fees. I would much rather fundraise than fees. I don't know why that bothered my heart so much, that some people would just soon write, and that makes sense, but
Well-
it bothered me a little bit.
Some of our programs have huge player fees and still fundraise 8, 9, 10 times a year. And these parents do not feel any benefit whatsoever from the fundraise. It might be maybe a 5% cut, but you're still paying $800,000-$900,000 for your child to participate.
The
And
parents
you're
are-
still fundraising 12 months out of the year. You're just spinning your wheels,
Holly, the parents or the child don't feel no benefit. I mean, what?
Well,
you
the
said-
child, because the child's
That's
responsible
what it's
for
for,
the
is for the child.
for
'Cause I'm not-
for
I don't
paying
do
it, but the
nothing
parent-
For the parent.
the parent is usually the one that pays it, but not all the time. I mean,
Well,
we
I
got.
did. I mean, I love the fact, some of them I've run across over the years, and in baseball and recreation here in Manchester, the buyout, where you could just go ahead and pay like $500 and they'll leave you alone for the rest of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
Fundraising, I love those.
Oh, listen, I'll do that right now. I'll
Take
write
my
a check.
money and
I'd
leave me
write that
alone.
check before it leaves.
Who do I make
I
the
would take
check
that
to?
deal all day long, but it's never offered that I'm aware
It
of.
is in soccer.
Well, you're probably,
It is in soccer. Well, good.
you're probably
Here's
not,
$500,
And I know,
leave me alone.
Like,
You're probably
our
not gonna
softball
get rid of-
program, I believe our softball program offers things like, you need to turn in $1,000, but here are ways that you can come off of that $1,000. And I thought this was really innovative. You can attend the, what is that, one night thing that they do for the special needs kids, the dance. You can attend that, and that will take $100 off your $1,000, or volunteer for this thing in the community, and that will decrease your total amount that you need, which is getting kids out there doing community service type things, lowering their player fee, or you can just straight up fundraise all of it by this fundraiser or that fundraiser, or you can just pay the $1,000.
That's what Shelbyville does.
Yeah,
They do the
and that
12
gives you some flexibility.
They did the 12 for 12 program over
But
there, and that's
most
what
of
you
our-
do.
yeah.
Is you go back and you do stuff for the
Community.
program for the community.
Yeah.
The players go and they read books, they do,
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole lot of different
Kinda-
things that they do.
Yeah, and that gives you some flexibility if you
Right.
can't write the big check.
yeah, you're probably never gonna get rid of fundraisers, but
Yeah.
I like the idea of limiting the number
I do
you can do,
Mm-hmm.
because it's otherwise, it's a, oh my gosh, Holly's at the door again. Quick,
Again.
everybody
she's
pretend they're not home.
posted Again, begging again, and everybody is just swamped.
Yeah.
With it.
Between
Another
me and Miss
problem.
Frida, I'm sure that, because I know that last year I filed taxes on $47,000 that I donated to this school system via athletics, $47,000. That was last year. This year is probably gonna be more. I agree 150%. we need to limit fundraising, but we've got to do it smart. We've got to,
Yeah.
on the flip side, we need to look and see what these groups are using and actually needing annually and see if there ain't a way to come in with the school system and try to make up that difference.
This is not to take away from our programs. This is
Oh,
to figure out
no.
how we
It's
can,
a-
how we
I
can.
get it.
We just,
Yeah.
we
It's a
just gotta
problem.
figure out a
Efficient.
happy medium here to start backing off. of
I
it,
got
but
you.
just trying to
Figure
look at it.
something
Yeah.
a better way.
I
Along
think,
with limited,
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead.
I think another issue is when the kids don't fundraise and there's not money. My son's on the middle school football team, and they got a pretty big talking to because only 3 or 4 of them actually did their calendar fundraiser. I didn't like asking people for that money, but I did it, and not everyone wants to do that. And I get it because you don't want to ask people for money, but they're not getting anything because nobody did it. There is no money. They had to use the bare minimum of money that they got for the food that they ate before the games, I guess, and there's no T-shirt for them to wear or whatever to represent their team. So you can't punish the kids for not fundraising, but also, I mean, you can't only reward the kids that did fundraise. It's just a problem. The money should come from somewhere else sometimes.
Yeah,
It's a
Right.
big two-way street.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
right.
it is. I see it.
Parent
both.
participation is just as bad as the issue of too much fundraising.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of limiting fundraising, you know, I think, you know, one thing that we could do that would tremendously help would be spread the fundraising out. You know, maybe come up with a calendar that, you know, you only got 2 fundraisers district-wide going on at any given time, or 3 or 4, you know, whatever. Just say that, take the high school up here, you know, we got 15 sports, 16, 17 sports. Well, we don't need all 17 of them having a fundraiser going on the same daggum week, or the same 2 weeks. Yeah, you know, so it's like, okay, well, if you want to do this, you know, here's the fundraising calendar. You go in here and mark your slot off, and that way,
That way you're not on top of each other.
exactly,
Yeah.
because, you know, if you got baseball, football, basketball, golf, cheerleading, dance team, they're all got a fundraiser going on. You know, you're really limiting your resources to get the fundraising,
You
to
are.
get the dollars from. You know, whereas if it's, you know, somebody every month's got something going on, you're more likely to obtain those dollars, you know, from the same people than you are, you know, all of them hitting the same people every month. Because, you know, everybody lives on a budget whether they want to or admit it or not. I mean, you have X amount of dollars that you can do something with at the end of the day.
Okay, we keep talking about sports. There's also all your clubs.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah,
clubs
just
go in there
multiple
too.
clubs.
Part of
so-
what I
yeah.
spoke of a while ago was
Yeah.
sponsoring the FBLA people to go to have their money to go to their trips.
Right.
I love it.
Just don't forget those as well, 'cause it's-
Right, I mean,
When one
I agree.
walks out the
FFA.
door, another walks in.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Everybody, you
agree
know, and
wholeheartedly,
those do
Mr.
not need
Shores.
to be left out.
I mean, you know, it's all clubs, whether it's the DECA Club or FBLA or FFA or, you know, any of them. I mean, all the fundraisers, you know, like I say, a calendar, I think would really help in not, you know, not just burdening the community with, you know, 16 fundraisers going on at the
Sure.
same time for
We
16
don't-
different groups.
We don't know how many
And
groups
it's
are
been
actually.
happening a long time.
It has.
For
It
FBLA.
has.
A long
Feel
time.
bad if I don't answer it.
Well, maybe the first thing we need to do is look at adding money to that fund for athletics, because I think we're behind most school systems as far as the total amount we're budgeting for athletics.
Conversation that me and Mr. Hargrove had, but what do we do whenever that money runs out? You know, when we have that money and and the federal government starts taking away some of that money, you know, it's gonna be hard to budget that too, so, you know.
Well,
And it's not doing away with fundraisers. I mean, I don't
No,
think.
No, you're not gonna do away with them,
No.
but, you know, in your instance, like you spoke of, you know, if that money starts to
Go away.
dwindle down, go away, well, like everything else, you cut your funding to your non-essential items, you know, to maintain the funding that we need for education. Well, then the funding to the, you know, to the secondary programs would have to go first. You know, and you know, I'm sorry, and then at that point, we'd be revisiting the whole fundraising thing again.
Yeah.
Because your fundraising would have to increase. So, you know, I mean, it's a double-edged sword any way you look at it, but, you know, to help alleviate some of the, burden that the community feels from all the fundraising, I think it's something that we need to look at. How can we lessen that burden? You know, even if it's just stretching the fundraising out where they're not inundated all the time. You know, you got three different groups every week walking in your front door asking for money from businesses.
And study shortfalls.
A lot of times it's large amounts of money. It's $500 a pop. It's $200 a pop.
15,000.
Yeah, I'm out.
You want to be
So-
on the Jumbotron.
So if we limited the number of fundraisers, say like to 2 per year per group, and you did a fundraising that would have to be a policy change, I'm assuming? So-
Yes.
Well, it would just be, it would be an excerpt in there of limiting, you know, we would just set a precedence of limiting
Well,
how
it-
many.
But by policy, right?
Speaking of,
Yeah.
I'd asked the TSBA for some examples, and the way that they sent me some examples, Williamson County, Murfreesboro City, and
Jackson County?
Jackson, Madison County school system. They put a limit on, but you look at them, and I mean, they've done many different things. Some do a limit per school in the district. Some put a limit on, you know, just certain types of fundraisers, like whether it's a fundraiser that the whole school participates in versus an individual sport or club. You know, so, I mean, it's kind of, that area is open in their policies, as far as how you'd want to approach that. So, you know, it's kind of, well, look at it, you know, that would be up for all of us to decide. And in order to decide that, I think we're going to need a whole lot of information beforehand.
Right.
You know, like what's, you know,
Your
what
shortfall.
does each sport
What do they
need
need?
to
Right, a need
maintain
set,
it for
right.
the year, you know, and go from there.
Sure. And one of the things you said was between need and want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because that want, once you hit those needs, then you start jumping into the wants, you start doing those wants. Sometimes that price just, it gets up to, hey, I now can afford, I'm gonna keep on, and it just keeps on rising. And that's gonna be a hard one to determine. Where do you stop it and say, whoa?
That was my Raptor comment. Are we
Yeah.
gonna drive a Hugo or are we gonna drive a Raptor?
Well, you can start with our annual budget. Our annual budget that we shoot toward, that we pay towards athletics.
Sure.
The national
That's-
average is 1.5% to 2% of your annual budget as a school system. So 1.5% to 2% of $55 million, $54 million is the national average of what is spent towards athletics or extracurriculars. And we're sitting at, I think it was 0.04 a year ago. That's all we spend towards.
In saying that, I've never heard the national average and that part of it.
You can
But
Google
don't forget the part of us paying for our coaches and those other parts.
Add it
Did
all
that
up.
include with it? And I don't know, I'm just bringing it up.
But it
so.
doesn't, it doesn't. When you do the national average of what is spent towards
Right.
your athletic programs, your extracurricular programs from a district as direct funding, the average is around 1.6 actually. So some schools is up around 2% in Tennessee, some are around 1.4, 1.3, but the average and national average is 1.6.
I think the first thing,
0.04, that's the best we could figure out last year.
I agree with Robert, I think the first thing we need to up it.
So when you
And-
see things like that in comparison with the communities around us, now you've just exposed why we have so much fundraising.
Right.
Because we're trying to keep up with that trend that seems to be painted in picture of being, well, this is the national average about what a school system spends.
So our fundraisers are trying to make up the
Yep,
difference.
they're trying to make up the difference to be competitive. Because
And-
it's all about competitive. It's from taking care of the students to being competitive.
But, and I think that the first thing we need to do is find out, I bet if each school made a list of all their fundraisers and we looked at the whole system as a whole, we would be surprised at what's going on out there as far as, I mean down to individual teachers. And, there's a lot going on, and, it gets hectic
And
and
whether they
gets,
call it a fundraiser or not, if you're asking outside sources for money, we
Right.
just need to know, because
Right.
maybe that's something we can provide.
because sometimes if you're not really in control, or not, if there's no limit to what you can do, it gets really out of hand. And when you sit down and look at what's going on, you can think, oh my, that is too much.
How do we
And,
compile that information?
I can gather that, give me a few days.
We're probably gonna have to wrap up this
But,
conversation.
but I think the
Yeah.
teacher
Because
part,
we got-
but I think the
lunch.
part on teachers having to get on Facebook or whatever, I mean, we need to look at the individual school budgets for teacher supplies and classroom supplies, because I think that money's budgeted. Maybe it's not being used properly or not being used. Maybe teachers don't know to ask their principal, hey, I need this in my classroom.
Right.
And they just think, well, I've got
I've
to
gotta
get it
ask
somewhere
them.
else.
Yeah.
So,
I've got one other thing while we're on fundraising, and that's on the lotteries, the raffle tickets and whatnot. According to our policy, it states, "No fundraising activity shall be conducted which distributes prizes or makes awards to winners from among purchasers of chance by means of ticket or otherwise through a random drawing or other random selection process." So, a raffle, cakewalk, whatever. They're all, according to the state, the general attorney for the state, that's all gambling. Even if you, I know there's a misconception, even if you attach a skill to it, it is still
Is that
legally.
written in that part of the law? The
And,
skill
it's just-
attachment, is that not?
It's
The way to answer him is it's a game of chance. If it's a game of
Yep,
chance.
the fact,
Right.
it's not in the policy about adding a skill. It just says no fundraising activity shall be
Right.
conducted. And the thing is, even if you add a skill to it, it still goes against policy, because policy states no fundraising activity will be done where it's a random draw. So even if you add a skill to it, and you're drawing out participants for that skill, it's still gambling. According to the state laws, Tennessee state law, it is still gambling, no matter how you look at it. And if it's, and I guess what I'm getting at is, we don't need clubs and groups and, fundraisers associated with us that are still illegal,
Right.
even by adding a so-called skill to it. Because, that's just, it's in our policy. We're not to do any type of lottery.
we can't do that, okay.
The only way you can do is if you can come to the board and ask for an exception to the policy. If you are a 501c3, true 501c3 registered with the state of Tennessee, and apply 6 months ahead of time with the Tennessee Gaming Commission.
Yes, you have to be authorized by the gaming
There you go.
commission to be able to do it.
Because
Which
I
is a
know
lot of
the
hoops to
quarterback
jump
club
through.
submitted that about 6 months ago, but I hadn't heard if they actually got it or not.
Yeah, so we need to follow, yeah. Can we can we start compiling
Sure.
all the fundraisers out
Sure.
there so we can make, and I
Yes,
know
sir.
when you and I talked about it, we knew we weren't gonna decide anything here today,
no,
but
just
it's getting the
wanna-
conversation
No, it's just
going.
getting
Start
it
talking
going.
about it,
Yeah,
get the ball
Right,
rolling.
but if we can start by compiling a list of all the fundraisers we're doing, then we can start looking at that and then decide, do we want to change policy? And Mr. Kuhn, if you could kind of get those example policies out to everybody
Sure.
too, so we
Sure.
can kind of see what that is, then I think that would probably be, a good start, and then we'll bring it up again, so.
And that would include booster clubs too.
Yeah.
What their fundraising is.
Yeah, that's all
Everything.
SS, school support
Anything-
organizations.
Right. Everything that's coming on the
Anything that's
public.
Okay.
Associated with the school system.
You're two different ones. You have a school support organization that fall under comptroller rules and different rules and laws and different policy even in our policy book. Then you have the booster clubs that are still associated with our schools and actually operate under the umbrella of the schools.
Right.
All
So you
right,
have those two different ones.
Lunch is getting cold, so.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all for listening to me on that.
No worries.
No, it's a good conversation, and I think you're right, you know, so.
I think everybody in the community is wondering.